Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to day number 2 of IESF Asian Regional Qualifiers. This time, still for IESF 2024 WEC in Riyadh. For you guys watching right now, man.
Yep.
Still, I think, a round robin for them. So, what are you doing? How you doing? Nice too.
I'm doing good, man. So far we had a great opening, I would say, for yesterday, but it was all women's games and we saw amazing things, especially from teams like, I would say Kazakhstan was really surprising for me yesterday. And then Mongolia, we got to see that sweep. And then in Indonesia, of course, but now today we get a mix. Actually, it's a mix of both men's and women's later on. I think we only have one women's match at the end of the day.
Yep.
But kicking it off here for Cambodia and Myanmar, I think is going to be a very interesting start to the day, for the most part, because I think it starts out at a high level already. Like if you talk about these two teams themselves and like their play style and everything else, they're going to come out swinging, man. And we have spent so much time talking about this patch, the new items, the changes, and it's safe to say, Mirko, that, I can't even say that we're set in a meta right now because we've seen so many different things pop up, so many unique heroes already utilized. And, these new items also coming into play, of course. And that's been a topic of discussion all around online everywhere. So we'll see. We'll see how even now some of these teams from the men's teams will be kind of setting the pace with whatever lineups and combinations of items they want to play for this first matchup.
And for everybody watching right now, you guys can go ahead and check out www.isf.gg to take a look at the groups and all of the results, because there are a few matches that will be going off stream right now, because some of the matches will be streamed, some of them will be played off stream. And right now, if you guys want to know, for the group stages at least, we have 2 groups for Southeast Asia. We got Group A with Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Myanmar, Thailand, and Timor-Leste, and Group B with Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, and Vietnam. But this is today's schedule here. As you can see, a stacked day with a total of 6 matches, I believe, but some of these will be off stream. 5 of these matches, however, will be live here on stream. Starts with Cambodia versus Myanmar, and then in our second match, it's another big matchup. Indonesia takes on Malaysia as we continue on later in the day with a lot of crazy matches here, back and forth action for sure. And then we will be ending things off with MLBB women. So I believe right here, what you're seeing is kind of a mix, right, of MLBB men's and women's, because Indonesia versus Laos will be an MLBB women's match.
Yeah, it's a whole day packed of games, but that's a good thing to point out because, some people do get confused. Like, they're like, where are these games? Because I even saw this yesterday with the Philippines female team. It wasn't streamed, so some people were messaging me and asking me like, hey, honestly, where's the games? They're not streamed. Yes, some of the games, this is a normal thing actually for ISF through, and also just for online events that have all these countries or all these teams participating. Unfortunately, you cannot stream all of them at once. So this time around, once again, as a reminder to everybody, some of the games will be happening offline, off stream. And if you guys want to check them out, again, Mirko already mentioned this, go to the website, check out isf.gg, and you guys can stay up to date that way. But for us today, we have 5 matches, I believe it is, that will be live streaming and casting for you guys. We'll be joined with another caster as well later on. But that's the thing, man. It's so far, I would say, just what we've seen from Asian qualifiers for day 1, the Asian Championship going to WEC. That's another thing we kind of have to remind everybody that this is actually for MLBB. These teams are competing for that slot already for the WEC. They're going straight there. And so these best of 3s that really do kind of start things off, it's important because you don't have, that many games. It is a best of 3, but you really have to be on point. And I feel like that's even a challenge in a way, if you will, like Mirko, because with the changes and with some of the new stuff popping up, itemization and everything, you hope that they have enough practice. But I will say, like, right now is a really good time to be an MLBB fan or an MLBB player, man, because there's so many competitions and tournaments going on. Like, some of these players just go from tournament to tournament to tournament. So I'm sure that they have had plenty of time to test things out or, try even new things. But really, when you're talking about a best of 3, if you're going to try something, let that first game be that experiment and then go from there. But I am happy that we did finally get our first non-sweep yesterday. You know, so far, if you're going from
technically,
qualifiers to here, it wasn't a sweep. But hopefully today we get some, you know, I would love some 3-game series going the distance here, Mirko.
I think match number 1 is very, very promising. If you want to talk about the match going all the way to full 3 games, I think match number 2 has a lot of potential there as well, right? But we'll stick to Cambodia versus Myanmar first here before we move on later on to Indonesia versus Malaysia. But I'd love to see the team lineups. And honestly, for the team lineups, I think you guys watching should already know. For Cambodia, it's a see you soon lineup, but obviously without MP the King. They've swapped out a few of these members, but I do want to talk a little bit about the slots first, right? Because for IESF 2024 WEC 24 in Riyadh, for at least Southeast Asia, there will be 2 slots, right? And then later on, there's going to be 1 slot for South Asia, 1 slot for East Asia that is already taken by Mongolia, by Team Mongolia. We got 1 slot for West Asia, 1 slot for Central Asia. And again, Kazakhstan, by beating Uzbekistan 3-1 yesterday in the non-sweep, that was Kazakhstan qualifying straight into Central Asia as the team. And also, we got the Oceanic qualifiers later on. We'll have a playoff match for Guam versus New Zealand. Very, very interesting matchup. But now, let's talk a little bit back about the lineups for both these teams, right? Because for Cambodia, it's Lucas in for MP the King from the See You Soon lineup for Cambodia. But it's still going to be the same group of people that we are used to seeing on the international stage for Cambodia. It's Felix, Ra, Run, and Boxy. And for Myanmar, it's basically just full Mythic Seal, right? Ruby DD, Ken, Justin, Juno, Zide. I'm a big fan of both these teams, honestly, but you know, maybe I'm a bigger fan of Justin, perhaps because of what he was able to show back then in MSC 2022, the crazy Johnson plays and how aggressive he is as a mid laner. It's just a very different angle, a very different perspective as a mid laner that he brings to the scene, you know? I love the creativity coming in from Myanmar all these past years as well, but for Cambodia, it's the sheer amount of just raw mechanics that they have. I think Boxy is very, very impressive for me personally. Like after seeing See You Soon, a lot of the times in international tournaments, Boxy is one of those roamers, especially on flashy picks like the Kufra, the Chos, these initiators, who is able to just steal the show sometimes up against, you know, even the Filipinos, Indonesians, some of the powerhouses. He's able to perform so well on these picks, and it really just comes down to how he's feeling, because it seems from some of these tournaments, if Boxy doesn't get that momentum going from the start of the game, if he doesn't get his flashy picks, Cambodia do lose a bit of that power early on to dictate the matchup, to go for these crazy skirmishes, and to force the team fights that they're kind of known for here. Technically, for both these teams, they're known for team fighting. Both of them love skirmishing. Both of them love playing around these neutral objectives and then battling it out. And here it is, the lineup again, as you guys probably want to see for Cambodia. It seems there's going to be actually a bit of a swap. I'm not sure, but it's going to be Moshi, Tegami, Nabi, Ue, or V, sorry, and Yui Fendi, it seems. So it's actually not going to be the lineup we were talking about.
Okay, well, interesting, because I was following what's on, you know, we saw here earlier, but if this is the case, if it is just going to be let's say a completely different team, could be even the case for Myanmar, but we'll have to see once we get the look at the lineups. But I guess what we could say is that, speaking of what we've seen from Cambodia before, by, you know, the roster that we were used to seeing from See You Soon, you know, that could actually play a part where it's like the play style, I should say, the play style for them is definitely a part of their identity, if you will. And I feel like Cambodia is always one of those regions that, I don't want to say they're complete dark horse territory, like from internationals that we usually see them compete in, but they are a team that typically, you're right, like if one of the players for some reason just doesn't have like a good game or a good day, their series as a whole kind of struggles. And they have a lot of playmakers, I feel like, and something that Cambodia kind of struggled with was fitting into that. It's not completely an old meta, but the utility dancing off meta, you know, with the lords and everything else. They were a team, they were a region that really just liked to fight. And I feel like where we are going with the meta right now favors these regions. Like, it favors these regions that love to be a little scrappy, a little, you know, start off on a really strong foot, get the momentum going. And, you know, some games just so far, like, we haven't seen games go super long just yet. I feel like the longest we've seen is maybe the 23-minute mark, I think is our longest game. I know our fastest is 6.5 minutes. Like that's quite the disparity between 6.5 minutes to 23 minutes. And we're yet to get to the point where are we seeing some of these longer games go 30 minutes? Because with teams like this, especially when we're in this part of the world for IESF, teams are most likely going to end quicker than, take longer to win games. We see them end a lot earlier. So, part of this, again, okay, we are going to take a look at Cambodia's roster. Here we go.
There you go. Yeah, all right.
It is, I didn't know if we were getting thrown a curveball.
Yeah.
Or, but it is going to be Ra, Lucas, Boxy, Felix, and Run for the lineup from Cambodia. So now that we have that cleared out, thank you so much. And now we can, again, we have a lot of information on these guys, Mirko. So, everything that we kind of built up, I think the region still plays very similar to what we see from them, and that's why they're such a dominant, strong, lineup here from Cambodia.
Very, very aggressive lineup for every single one of these members, right? But especially Ra and Boxy. And I think, like you mentioned, in this new meta, especially, this has already been like the case for the longest time, but the trio mid is just so important, right? So if Ra and Boxy can get things going all the way from the start, can get a winning matchup in the mid lane, or just comfort picks so that they can actually pop off in these team fights, it'll do Cambodia a whole lot here in these skirmishes. And also for Felix, mainly, it does seem like he is more of a playmaking XP. He loves getting his hands on the Terizlas, getting his hands on the CC heroes that can really dive into the back and actually provide some sort of utility, whether it be CC or sometimes a little bit of damage mixed in with that CC, right? Maybe a CC pick, curtain call with some poke there with the yo-yo. Really cool stuff from Cambodia. And I'm glad, I had a second guess myself earlier because of the rosters, right? But now, all right, I was like, all right, I don't know why they would swap, but okay, this is the correct one. And I don't know. Sometimes, especially with these players already playing with an import in their MPL, some of the concerns that are raised during national or like when they represent Cambodia is the fact that how are they going to perform without some of these imports, right? They have an import in the gold lane and also they have an import in the jungle. So with these two players not being able to play for Cambodia, obviously, now with two players stepping in, I really wonder how they've actually adapted. How has Lucas and Run adapted to the rest of the See You Soon lineup, right? Because technically they have been playing together for a long time as well, but this is where full lineups like Myanmar have an advantage, have a bit of an edge here. And we can see here for Ken, Justin, Ruby Didi, Juno, and Zide, they've been playing as a team for such a long time. This is Mythic Seal. If you guys follow the Myanmar scene, the Myanmar qualifiers, they're always able to make it to at least top 2. It's very unfortunate that the last 2 times they were only able to get top 2. They were not able to get that final win in the grand finals to qualify to some of the other events, but I'm glad to see them here representing Myanmar, right? Because even though they're not going to be in the Esports World Cup, they'll be in the World Esports Championships, maybe to the main stage. I really hope so too, because this is a team that a lot of people, even to this day, even after their solid performances back to back, people still doubt them. People still think that they are like shaky, and I get that. I definitely understand that because it does look like Myanmar are kind of shaky compared to, other teams, but that's just their playstyle. They love going for the 50-50 gambles. They love taking risks, and it's all about the calculation that they make in the game to make those risks happen or to take those risks and make it good for them, make it work for them. I'm very interested in how this will work out because technically what I mentioned for Myanmar kind of applies to Cambodia as well. They're also risk takers. Is that it's going to be a bombastic game for sure.
I 100% agree, man, because when you just look at this lineup from Myanmar, just watching them over the course of like the past tournaments or even the internationals they've competed in, they're always a team to keep your eye on. They always are able to sometimes pull something out of the hat in situations where you're like, man, how do they do that? And it's usually just because, again, their players individually are so gifted, and as a team they've been playing together for quite some time now that they have this synergistic thing with that bombastic play style, if you will, that chaotic play style. I'm gonna have my eyes especially on Justin, man. I always enjoy watching Justin play, and with this with the way that the mid lane has kind of shifted a little bit, I know we still see a lot of Louis Yi, but even if he picks up the Louis Yi, I'm okay with that. I want to see how Justin is playing with that, fitting into some of the changes that have happened here. And I think even for, the case of like Ken in the jungle, like what type of jungle picks will Myanmar pick up? Because so far when we look at, junglers, yes, you mentioned Lucas being on this lineup now for Cambodia, a little bit of a change, but I would still almost just kind of assume that both these regions, if they really wanted to pull out the assassin picks for the jungle, this could start off a very flashy showing for our first best of 3, and with those two junglers going head to head here. And I think that's also where you have to point out the fact, like you mentioned with Boxy, man, like Boxy's got to have this good, like he's got to have a good start, a good game. Roamers, I feel like, are in a weird position right now. I even looking online, I feel like I've seen a lot of like roams players, like tanky players, our mains, kind of complain a little bit about the Sky Piercer, and dealing with that. I don't know, like I've heard two sides of the story, and maybe you guys listening and watching the stream can also share your thoughts, because I feel like there's two camps for the Sky Piercer. Like some people are like, man, it needs to be changed. Something has to happen about it. And then there's the other camp that's like, it's not that bad. Like the defensive items are actually decent, like to deal with it. And it's actually kind of hard to get that trigger, the passive off, and the stats on it, the base stats aren't that good. So like there's two camps of like debate for this item alone. Like, can you imagine one item causing so much online debating going between the both categories here? So I want to see exactly what these two teams want to do about it and how that's going to affect some of the roaming options. Because even yesterday with the women's, Mirko, we saw some great things just with like a Minotaur alone. Remember the combination? I feel like this is the most memorable for me yesterday, was that Minotaur Iksha combination. I mean, they had a Terizla too paired in with that, and that was like the you're just hoping for the holy moly setup wombo combo of lifetime. We didn't get it at the end, but you still saw how strong the Minotaur still is in the roam, and some of that setup potential when you pair it up with an XP laner like a Terizla, who is arguably probably one of the most picked heroes aside from Yuzhong in the XP lane, that is definitely going to be highly contended, I think. So we'll have to see how this XP lane adjusts also from that. But so far, we have seen Yuzhong fall down a little bit in terms of that 100% win rate he was holding on for the longest time. But, I can't wait to finally see this start, because it's always exciting when you're watching, especially you get to the point where it's also MLBB Open or men's, and you see what they've been cooking, for a while, because I think that's what a lot of people would say, like, let them cook. Let's see exactly what these guys have cooked for the lineups and for the major tournaments.
We were talking just yesterday about how this meta is going to be shaping up the whole, like, every single lane, right? How it's going to be playing out, etc. But I do really want to talk about the XP lane, because we were talking about, especially last patch, before this patch dropped, that the XP lane is so diverse. We get to see the Benedetto, we get to see a whole lot of Paquitos, and there's a lot of just different picks you can actually make work in the XP lane. Same goes for the mid lane, the roam, especially, and the gold lane, right? But the jungle was very, very static. It was very one-dimensional pre-patch. Now after the patch, we are seeing so much more diversity, which is amazing in the jungle, but we're the hero pool is kind of dying in the XP lane though, right? I mean, so far, based on the first day of the Asian region qualifiers, because it was literally just Terizla, Yuzhong, and then we get CC from time to time. Those are the three picks that we've been seeing the whole day yesterday. It was just a swap every single time with these three picks going back and forth. And maybe it's because of the War Axe, getting a little bit of a buff technically. It's kind of a merger with Bloodlust Axe. We got that Sky Piercer as well, but this War Axe is just really, really good, especially for these heroes like the Terizla, like the Yuzhong, and the CC. These three picks that we've been seeing from day number 1, all of them can actually abuse that additional sustain, plus the prolonged team fight effect also from that composition. But hold up, we're going to get straight into the draft, it seems, and we got a new draft asset right here. Shout out to production, but Myanmar is going to be on the blue side, Cambodia is going to be on the red side. We got the Chip, the Harith banned out straight out of the bat, and whoa, Ling and Luo Yi. So super respect, I would say, given over already. By the way, I think it might be swap, because some of the player names are kind of like, Ken, Ruby Didi is Myanmar. So yeah, we'll see later on which one is actually on like red or blue.
Yeah. Right now, we'll just go with the fact that these bans are for sure, right? So, well, at least that, and see if the players end up swapping here, because it is pretty important when you're thinking of a who is blue, who is going to be red, and how do they draft according to that. Matilda's going to be banned out here for this last phase. I'm still assuming this is Myanmar banning these out. Interesting too that the Ling was taken out, because we saw this yesterday. It was from Indonesia, right? That played the Ling for the first time, and it was quite devastating to say the least. So last ban's going to be the Angela taken out. We saw that priority picked up quite a bit of times so far throughout this. So first pick here with a lot left open, and this is where typically you see the Fredrin still open, you're going to be like, man, Fredrin locked in right now. But that's not the case anymore, guys. It's changed, right? This utility dominance is changing to a certain extent. Roger picked up first here.
Great flex pick, right? It's really, really good. I was just expecting, hopefully maybe we get that Fredrin pick, right? As you say, it's not going to be the Fredrin first pick. That will be a classic Caster Curse moment. But yeah, the Roger is just really, really good right now. We got so much flex potential on this Roger to go for the jungle or the gold lane. But hey, Myanmar seems to be, still loving that Fredrin. It's going to be the Fredrin and the Arlet locked in. Arlet also kind of a flex right now. They can use it in roam. They can also use it in XP. It's going to be very, very good to utilize in towards a later phase. But all right, we are going to go back here straight into the draft. So we're not going to be using that asset not just yet. There has been a Minotaur and a Vixana pick since we last saw in the draft, and so far it does seem like it's kind of a mix, right? They want to go for no, it's actually just a full team fighting composition so far for Cambodia. And for Mythic Seal, they're also leaning towards that. Maybe they want to double down here with the last pick in the first phase. But I wonder what they're going to go for, right? Like this early in the first phase, are they going to go for a mage, perhaps go for the Valentina, able to steal away the Eternal Guard and also Minion's Fury? Or maybe do they want to pick up a marksman and have that edge later on in the second phase so that they can actually go and start banning out Cambodia? But it's neither. It's not a Valentina, not a marksman. It's a Farsa pick for Justin. As expected from the man in the mid lane. Justin loves playing these, explosive heroes. Last time, his most iconic pick has still got to be the Johnson, but the Farce is good too for Justin.
Interesting. I was just laughing a little bit too. Raw, your big daddy. Your big daddy. So I'm not used to seeing Raw's name like that, but so they have this. The lineup that they have in the first phase already here, I feel like is pretty solid for both sides. Something that we haven't seen pop up often is the Arlot. I feel like it's been slept on a little bit by a lot of the teams competing, because Arlot's still definitely a great pick, and the final slash, you can use it in so many different ways to initiate, to peel, to kind of, and at the same time, I feel like he still is flexible. We don't actually know if he is 100% going to go into the XP lane just yet. There could be some swaps, or if he is going to be going roam. So with that, both sides already having really solid choices. Now, second phase of the bans, you can see the Yuzhong was actually taken out. And I'm wondering if this means that we might see a Terizla pop up here to round out this lineup, of course, from Cambodia. But with that, there's one ban left. Edith 2, by the way, we saw how devastating it can be yesterday with that Ling paired up from Indonesia in the women's matches. And okay, there it is. So they take out those options from the XP lane. No Yuzhong, no Terizla. What does this leave open for Cambodia here to pick up in the XP lane once they get through that next ban? XP lane, like you said, has kind of been really just zoned into maybe a few picks, so far from what we've seen. And I even miss the Paquito, man. One of my favorite heroes to watch, to just kind of play into the hands of any team.
So both of the picks that we were talking about, the Yuzhong and the Terizla, that have basically been buffed, not directly, but with the changes in the items, right? It's been buffed, has been taken away straight off the bat, like Yuzhong and the Terizla. So they're really focusing down on the XP. It does definitely mean that maybe Ruby Didi will be on this Arlet in the XP lane, and that's going to be a very good Kaja ban as well, respecting the pick-off potential that Mythic Seal for Myanmar here can actually utilize. And for the pick, let's see now, with the Edith and the Kaja ban, two technically roam bans towards Myanmar. They want to go for the gold lane here. A safe gold laner. What would it be? Probably a Claude, right? If you want to really get out of the Minion's Fury, get out of the range of maybe the Terrifier, the Eternal Guard. It's just going to be very, very tough, though, if you go for the Claude, because technically then you'll have a little bit of scaling in the mid lane and also in the gold lane. Before the Pharsa, at least, she can technically play both. She can play both in the early game and the late game. She finds the power spike in both of those points, right? In the early game, you're really, really good for wave clear, especially once you get that level 4. It does seem like they will be going for the Natan, but now the big concern is maybe the physical damage aspect. They already have an Arlet. Maybe the Arlet will be able to just pop in the War Axe as usual. That's kind of the norm right now for the XP laners. You get the War Axe, and then you go for full tank, because it already gives you a lot of sustain, plus, you know, the added bonus of just the stacks here as you continue to go for a prolonged team fight. And maybe that might not be a concern at all. If the Fredrin also goes for a little bit of physical damage, at this point, maybe he won't. Maybe he doesn't even need to. Maybe if he goes for the Thunderbelt early, he can actually just utilize that, and it's going to be a Thamus that's going to be hovered over. That'll definitely put Felix in a winning lane up against Ruby DD. The Thamus versus Arlet matchup definitely will force Arlet to be a bit more passive, and they lock it in with also a Nolan. So they got two real good picks in, you know, the later portions of their drafting phase to counter the first phase picks of Myanmar. Fredrin and Arlet. Fredrin going to be completely outfarmed by the Nolan, and that's why they're hovering over the the Hilda. They want to go and maybe just invade all the way from the start. And now the Ruby, that's another good choice. I think both of these choices that they are, you know, already looking towards is very, very good up against that Nolan. You can cancel out a whole lot of those engages, those assassination attempts with the Ruby, but you can be very, very aggressive early on with the mid control that you technically already have with the Pharsa too, if you go for the Hilda.
Okay, I'd like to see the Hilda. I feel like this is
Same.
Good, just good time in the jungle, really kind of slowing down the Nolan pick, but it's going to be the Ruby. So Ruby gets locked in. Interesting lineup. I would say both are very strong in their own sense. You know, there's different timings for both of them. Whenever you have that Natan picked up, you got to wait a little bit longer, I feel like, you know, for most of the lineups to let that shine and come through. But even so, well, you already mentioned this a little bit about the Fredrin, Mirko. I want to see how this is built out, because we've only seen one Fredrin since the patch, at least on the live streams. And, you know, it didn't work out too well just yet. And I think part of that, too, is seeing how it deals against the Skypiercer that we'll most likely even see here with Roger. By the way, running the war cry emblem that we started to see pop up yesterday.
Okay. But there's no focusing mark, right? We'd love to see that stack up, the 8% plus the 6%, but this time around, there's not going to be any focusing mark from the side of Cambodia. It's actually going to be the Impure Rage for even the Nolan and the Fredrin. A whole lot of Impure Rages here as we get into game number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, throw your predictions in the comment section in the live chat right now for Cambodia versus Myanmar. Which draft do you guys like more? And man, let's get back into that Impure Rage topic, because for both these teams, there's going to be 3 Impure Rages for each. Cambodia, it's on Lucas, Felix, and also Ra. For Myanmar, it's on Ken, Ruby DD, and Juno. It's a very, very interesting start, man, to the emblems as well. A lot of sustain and prolonged team fights definitely in mind with these Impure Rages. Maybe actually they want to stay in these lanes a bit longer, right? And run the King. I love the flex in the end. They already picked up the Roger, I believe, as a jungle early on, but then swapped it into the gold right after they see the Natan to give him more pressure to play with to try to bully Juno in lane.
You know, I'm wondering if we'll see this still, where some of the gold lanes still prioritize the Skypiercer, like even first item. I still want to know if that's actually the best case scenario for some of these matches, especially as they get, you know, a little more competitive in terms of these compositions, like this kind of composition. All right, we're going to take a little breather here, but this kind of composition for both teams is very well rounded, because on one side for, of course, you know, Lucas, he has this Nolan pick. You can burst people down quite early, and whereas on the other side, your gold laner, and that's to be paired up with Roger. Roger actually scales up pretty well too quickly. Whereas again, on the other side, Nathan specifically has to take some time, but you pair it up with a Pharsa who's good early game damage. So I feel like they cover their bases from early to late game, and this might be one of the series where we see one of the games get past that 20-minute mark. I'm hoping we do, because then we really get to see things kind of fall into place, especially the factor of having the Sky Piercer on some of these members, some of the new defensive items, and we'll see how exactly, even for Myanmar, how they want to deal with that.
For Myanmar, it's definitely going to be a mid to late game that they're looking for, right? With their composition with the Farsa and the Natan already, very early.
Oh. This could be a first blood already. Vengeance going to be used by Sariam Felix, but he's going to be just fine. And now the response back to it. Ruby DD could be in trouble. This might be the first blood. Flicker on the defensive. Ooh. Now gets knocked back up. They re-engage. Ruby DD still going to be alive. Appraiser's Wrath comes dropping down, and now Justin, what a flicker forward to come in and get the kill. Ruby DD ends up going down in the exchange, and they're still on the hunt. Not sure if Boxing is actually going to be able to chase them down there, but that's fine. It's a 1-for-1 trade. Wow, and now the turtle's up.
That was so good for Myanmar, right? I mean, the fact that they fought that 2v3, and then later on, with some of those reinforcements, it technically became a 2v4, but they were able to survive, and now Felix on it.
They're going to go for it. Ken able to get the turtle. Feathered Airstrike comes down to get the kill on Lucas, too. Sorry, I'm Felix to drop as well. Myanmar comes out swinging for the first objective.
Well played again. They were able to get a solid win in the bottom lane because they technically won with a man disadvantage, utilizing that to then clear out in the bottom lane. And now another skirmish.
Double Slash already going to be used, all fighting for this orange buff, still duking it out. Look at the damage. Oh, we're going to miss some of the action in the bottom. It looks like Boxing is still going to be alive. And we missed it, but Ruby DD went down, and we're looking at the top lane while that all happened. But it looks like Ruby DD ended up falling in the exchange.
Again, for Myanmar, I guess there's a little bit of give and take here and there, right? For them, another fight?
Oh, another fight in the mid lane? All right, they get raw. So Myanmar, they're not stopping. They might have lost a couple here, but they keep finding these little moments of winning for across the map. So with that, let's take a quick look. Items falling into place here. Nothing first item locked in just yet.
Yeah, this is quite concerning though, at least for the Nolan, right, for Lucas. The fact that he is on the same level as the Fredrin early on is not really a good look, because on the Nolan, you want to utilize that faster clear speed to try to bully the Fredrin in terms of at least XP. And even though, they were able to get some of these kills in the bottom lane, they weren't able to fully capitalize on it and punish Myanmar in that turtle take. They rushed it, they went for it, but it was stolen away eventually by Myanmar. And now Boxy...
Oh. Boxing jumps in. Not sure if he's going to get the setup. He does get the No Inferior. He's still up for a little bit longer. They're going to find it out. Justin, though, won't be able to escape, run. And now the Appraiser's Wrath drops down, fighting under. They're quite low, but Lucas here to help them fight and disengage. I'm surprised Cambodia, no one drops from that. I don't even know how Boxing was actually able to survive that. Manoian Fury plus the motivational roar, I guess, was enough. And now Ken could focus on Lucas. This could be another pickup they're looking for. Gets dragged back in as Lucas will now fall as the turtle spawns.
That was already so good for Cambodia, the fact that they were able to get that dub, outplaying Myanmar. But in the end, Lucas staying in that bush, opening it up a bit too early, and now Ken has a massive advantage. It should be a free turtle in Myanmar, and he should be able to just retry this, and that's what he does. Ken going up again, a little bit of that skirmish happening, but I don't think they're going to really come in. Bottom lane, though.
Oh. Run, gonna be in trouble. Yeah, that's the burst damage we were talking about. Justin now, like we were mentioning, a key player here for this lineup from Myanmar. And right now he's doing really good at just scaling up on this far side.
The scaling is going to be very, very good for them. Again, for Myanmar, everything's going to plan, because technically for them, it's all about just playing around this early to mid just by trading. As long as they stay even across the board against Cambodia, their composition will actually outscale. The fact that they're winning makes it even better for this Natan, for this Farsa. The Farsa early on already very, very good, especially right after level 4, but now it's going to be in that limbo state. If she can get a few more kills, actually, you know what? Justin's already on 3 kills, so this is already a snowballing Farsa. So coming into the 7th, 8 minute later, when the third turtle spawns, Myanmar will have such a crazy amount of damage to play with, crazy amount of burst. And at this point, Juno might actually also participate in these skirmishes, because usually on the Natan, at least before the Holy Crystal, you really don't want the Natan to participate in the fights. But for Myanmar, I think most of their members are actually quite ahead, so they might actually be able to utilize this fully to go for these skirmishes, to force Juno to snowball even faster, because he's already on the way to the Starlium scythe. Right after he gets a Starlium scythe, it should still be okay. The best way would still be for him to go for, you know, the Holy Crystal before the fight. That would be the best power spike to play with. But hey, if your team's already winning this hard, going and finishing up that Starlium Scythe straight into... Oh my god, that damage straight into the Holy Crystal would be great. But yeah, the Thunderbelt, we were talking about that maybe built up by the Fredrin, but it's Ruby DD who builds it up first right into the Fury Hammer, so no War Axe, at least not now, and Ruby's going to be doing so much damage with that true damage on the Thunderbelt. Lucas, the fact that he's in the same level as Ken, again, is going to be concerning, because when it comes to the Red Tree battles, Ken has the last hit advantage, right? With that first skill straight into the Red Tree, you're very, very good on that combo. You should be able to utilize it to get it, and now turtle number 3 spawns in the game.
Turtle 3, they're going to dance it off once again. I'm offended to find the pole. Now can they get the connection? Eternal Guard going to be dropped as well on top of them all. It's going to be the first one to fall as Boxing goes down, and now they have to win the fight. A flicker from Justin, though, keeps them at bay. It's only a 1 down for Cambodia. Myanmar can just go ahead and get reset and healed up here. They're going to go ahead and probably start the turtle, but it looks like they call it off for now. Still have to be careful of some of the damage outload from Cambodia, but it looks like as they get in position, they'll check things out. And that's going to be, I mean, Run was able to really push down this turret. Not sure if he's able to get it just yet, but now they find themselves once again at this turtle to fight it out for. Zides does not have the I'm offended combination, can't force the fight, and Boxy, he has that Minoan Fury, so they go ahead and try to feel this area out. Rudy DD waiting for this flicker final slash combination, gonna go in already. Flickers out himself on the defensive. So this is one time again for the turtle. Feathered airstrike drops down, and it's gonna go for the reset. They want Ken down. They jump in. Rudy DD goes in with a vengeance. Final slash to help him out. It's gonna be Boxy that falls. Eternal Guard gets dropped down. Ooh. And now still finding out he's still gonna be alive. He's on the run. Ken will go ahead and start up the turtle. It's just a disengage. Meanwhile, Juno pushing in. Zides will finally fall, but I think Myanmar is happy with that. They get the objective, they get some kills, and everybody tries to make it back in time, but it looks like he stops them out. Zariam Felix gets the kill before eventually going down himself. What a fight for that last turtle.
XP for XP, Roamer for Roamer, so technically it's a fair trade, but look at Myanmar, they were able to get the turtle, and again for Juno, that's a big kill now in his pockets, getting him to snowball even faster in the early game to get to that mid stage, to get to that Holy Crystal. That's going to be big for Myanmar. Cambodia, they get a trade off the board, finally at least getting a structure here, because for Myanmar, they were also able to get a mid lane turret, by the way, in that skirmish. So now the fact that Myanmar has a 3,000 gold lead with a composition that technically still scales mid to late is going to be very, very scary for Cambodia. I thought for sure around that turtle, you know, for Cambodia, they needed that win desperately because their composition is still very, very reliant on a snowball in the early to mid game, and you can see it here from the Nolan already. A little bit of a change to that build path. From the Heptases, you usually see a little bit more damage, maybe with the Hunter Strike, but now he's kind of forced to go for the Melphic Roar. There's so many tanky members on Myanmar that can soak in that damage, and so he'll have to go for that penetration first, and maybe now he goes for a little bit more of just that base damage. Maybe a BOD even if he feels confident, but it does seem like Boxy.
Oh, whoa, Boxy gets caught out a little bit, tries to use that Minoan Fury, but will eventually get taken down. And like you were mentioning, especially some of these itemizations, there's Juno. There's the Holy Crystal before that 11-minute mark that we talk about with this Nathan locked in. Skypiercer also being picked up by Run the King. And with that, this could be a very crucial power spike for both of them. Look at Ken taking a ton of damage. Now Star Felix is going to jump in with the Conquering Inferno. They're forced back a little bit further. Vengeance already popped as well. So both these teams, I mean, given this whole situation, even with that 3,000 gold lead that Myanmar has, they still have to respect what Cambodia has with this lineup and the possibility of losing a key team fight before this Lord comes up.
And now for Myanmar, they can actually start to dictate the pace. City!
Yep, City gonna go in. Lucas could be in trouble. Feathered airstrike won't get the kill. Again, Boxy gonna jump in with a Minoan Fury, tries to knock them up a little bit further. Eternal Guard gets dropped down too. Now Run the King goes in. Can he proc the Skypiercer? He cannot just yet. And now 2 fall for Cambodia. Myanmar might want more, but they know they have the numbers advantage and they'll go for the Lord.
No Minotaur, no Vixana, Ra and Boxy have been taken down in that skirmish earlier. It was a very good re-engage for Boxy. I could definitely see what they were going for there, but the fact that Juno was just able to blink out with that entropy, really crisp, clean positioning from Juno to get himself out of that sticky spot and to outplay that situation. And you can definitely see from that skirmish alone, the burst damage that the Natan has. Yes, I said that right. Burst damage. When you get the Holy Crystal, that skill 1 will basically be burst, especially if you land both of it, with the entropy and the one that's coming out yourself, right? So Myanmar, overwhelming advantage now as we enter the 12th minute of the game, because they've already technically gotten to their mid stage at the 10th minute. That Holy Crystal that should be, you know, that should be actually acquired by the Natan around this minute, around the 12th minute, has been acquired at the 10th minute, so they were able to just dictate the pace, and now they can continuously siege down on Cambodia. And if they get all tier 2s, this is incredible value again. Conceal by Side, and it's only used to just zone them away. The turret splash should get rid of this Lord, and it does, but the fact that Myanmar have taken 2 tier 2s with the first Lord is already very valuable. Now, in the bottom lane, it does seem like Nolan, it seems like Lucas is going to be completely zoned away from their own jungle, and whoa, Felix.
Oh, gonna be in trouble. Flicker is out. Eternal Guard gonna be dropped. Vengeance already popped, but it's not enough. As Sarion Felix gonna fall. Minoan Fury gets the knock up they're looking for, but they finally find Zidiz. But look at Ruby DD in the back. They'll punish Lucas as well as 3 fall for Cambodia, and Myanmar looking up for the 4th. Run the king, can't run far enough. He gets stuck in between, even with the pounce, will finally fall. It's only Ra left to his own devices. And Myanmar has a wave pushing up top and bottom. They're going to go ahead and knock on the base of Cambodia. We'll see if they possibly end the game here or if they have enough time to stall it out. First base turret will go down, though. And it looks like that's all Myanmar can get for now.
And that's another Holy Crystal. The fact that Myanmar have been only relying on that one Holy Crystal. Oh, the minion waves as well. Cambodia tunnel visioning on that bottom lane, trying to defend in the bottom lane and completely forgetting that the wave was also crashing up top. So those are 2 of the side lanes, and man, at least for Myanmar, that's even more value, right? For Cambodia, that's even more catastrophic. The fact that they only lost the bottom lane turret and they could have actually defended the top base turret would have been great for them, because again, the far lane will be that top lane. But again, the minion waves in the end was able to take that base turret down, so Myanmar will have that far lane control. And it does seem like even in the enemy jungle, they're just claiming territory here. Myanmar slowly but surely entering the jungle, trying to take everything away from Cambodia, suffocating them inside their own base and taking all of their gold, all their resources. Let's see if they go for the fight.
Oh, they're just gonna take that. I mean, using all that for the purple buff, they don't want to give it over at all, you know, to Lucas, and they're gonna make him work for it. So this is very crucial for them, as this Lord does come up in about 10 seconds from now. Cambodia still looks like they want to fight it out, even with this the way that things have been going, but actually they're going to force the fight. Ruby DD goes in with the final slash. There's the knockup from Boxy. They get multiple flickers out, knocked up into the air multiple times. It's Myanmar running for the hills. It's a double for run, and they wants more. Goes under the turret, has to flicker out to avoid the feathered airstrike. Meanwhile, the waves are still pushing in on the top and the bottom as the base turrets are down, so they can't do the Lord just yet. But with 2 members down, Myanmar sets up around the Lord.
Oh, that was a very unnecessary fight from Myanmar, man. The fact that they actually went in to go for the fight was interesting, right? Because again, they have the far lane, they have 2 side lanes pushing in towards Cambodia. They could have played that Lord dance way easier to actually go for the Lord, but they decided to go for the fight, and that's what we were talking about before the drafts. Now feather airstrike.
Oh, feathered airstrike going to be dropped, and now once again run on the hunt for Justin. We'll be able to find him just now. Juno though stalling, and now Ken. It's going to be a reset on the Lord. They have to back off, but there's the Sky Piercer. The big numbers come out as it assassinates Ken, and now Cambodia has flipped it around. They'll get this Lord. Ruby DD trying to keep them at bay, trying to stall it out the best he can. Final slash on Felix, and now Juno's there to join the fight. Vengeance won't be enough, and they get the kill, but Cambodia gets the objective.
Cambodia get the enhanced Lord, and this should buy them a little bit more time to play with, especially now that the Lord is going to be crashing down towards Myanmar's tier 2. But if we take a look at the items, Juno actually already has a Divine Glaive and the Blood Wings too. So with the Farsa, with the Natan, this should still be a very easy defense to pull off from Myanmar, unless they go for a fight again. That's quite a bit unnecessary, right? As long as they play with their tier 2s, it should still be a very easy clear. And so far, as you can see from the mid lane, those enhanced minions stand no chance up against the clearing force of an Atan plus a Farsa. Now rotating down below, maybe even going to deny the Lord to charge in, but that's something that they were unable to do, and the Lord will still be able to charge in, maybe even getting this turret with one last hit. No. Okay, they barely saved that turret in the bottom lane, and now they're just going to be cycling back and forth to mid and to bottom to clear out these other waves. That actually ends up still with Myanmar getting a bit more value with that Lord advantage. Still though, for Myanmar, they had the 2 side lanes. There was no real reason for them to take the fight, but it is that Myanmar style that we were talking about before the drafts, right? They are risk takers. They want to get the game as fast as possible, even with a composition like this. So I can understand why they went for that skirmish, even though it was unnecessary. It could have maybe ended with an earlier game with their composition already snowballing, but Ruby DD's got to respect this.
Oh, Ruby DD does have the immortality, so it's going to... Oh, Zides goes in with the flicker. Couldn't find the offended that he was looking for, and now they're going to have to back off from that big ultimate's already expended. Juno also using the entropy, so they're just going to have to reset. Cambodia knows it. They have everything pretty much online at this point that they need to force a fight. Zides, though, half health now, has to run the king on the chase. Now they respond under the tier 2 turret. Eternal Guard drop there. Appraiser's Wrath will not be enough to get Boxy. Rudy DD once again has the immortality. It's going to go ahead and pop and reset. He flickers out defensively. Back and forth between the 2 teams, really just kind of getting these ultimates out. But the one advantage for Myanmar right now is the base turrets in the base. 2 of them are down for Cambodia.
Athena Shield picked up by Ruby DD. Would love to see the items, by the way, right now in the 18th minute of the game, because it's coming up into a big Lord fight now, and I would love to see if, Cambodia actually have those item power spikes to play around. With the Roger, he's actually doing so much damage in the later stage of the game. We were actually expecting the early game to go way better for Cambodia, and then the late game to go for Myanmar, but at this point, it's kind of the opposite, right? Like, for Myanmar, they're actually kind of struggling here as we enter the late stage of the game, because Cambodia's team fighting prowess has been very impressive. And I think for Run the King, he might have a bit of that attack speed going for himself with the Sky Piercer, right? I don't know why he's able to actually shred through some of these tanks. Side.
Oh, Side. Again, Conceal going to be used, and now Entropy already committed. Fighting once again, the knockups from the Minoan Fury, and now the battle in the mid. Immortality from Felix is going to be popped. Rudy DD doesn't have his. He's going to go down by Lucas. That's exactly what Cambodia wanted. They get the numbers advantage now, and they could possibly take this Lord. But Ken might have a different plan in mind, as he wants to get in the zone here. This is the closest we've seen from especially these Lord dances later on, almost the 20-minute mark. They're going to go in. They're quite low. Feathered Airstrike to drop down. Lord isn't going to reset just yet, and remember, it does hurt. You can see the damage from Lucas. Now Zenez once again jumps in, goes in with I'm Offended. They pop the immortality. Run goes on the hunt again. Zenez gets the immortality popped, and now Felix looking for the kill, but Ken gets the Lord in the exchange. His immortality is going to be popped as he gets assassinated from Run the King, but it looks like Myanmar on the hunt. Justin on the chase with the Wings by Wings, goes on with a Feathered Airstrike, will be able to pop the immortality, but can't get Lucas, and now forced to the base. They only left with a third of the health on the base left, but Myanmar will go ahead and reset with the Lord.
What a crazy skirmish to end things here in that Lord fight, man. Oh my god, for Cambodia, it looked so good for them. Able to get one member right before the Lord even spawned in. Ruby DD was taken out, and they were able to isolate Ruby DD so well, using the cycle of cooldowns from the side of Myanmar to punish them instead, right? When Justin and Juno used the entropy and the Feather Airstrike, that's the window of opportunity for Cambodia. And unfortunately for Cambodia, though, even with that man advantage, even with the team fighting advantage, Ken is just him. He walks in, gets the red tree, and now they have an evolved Lord to play with.
Evolved Lord to push in. The whole team from Cambodia has to deal with it. It looks like they're going to make quick work of it. Xenis goes in with the I'm Offended. Boxy's still going to be alive, actually utilizing the Minoan Fury, so somehow, some way, Cambodia still defending even against that Lord push. But this will be that last turret in the base going down, and now Myanmar looks to possibly cap out the game here. Half health on the base, so it's up to Cambodia to play the defense. Juno going to jump in with Entropy, Run trying to keep them at bay as well. Doesn't want to commit the Lycan Pounce just yet, but to clear the minions, and it looks like, so far, Cambodia holds on defensively.
Oh, Cambodia still with a great defense. They were able to just cycle through those waves back and forth again, staggering those waves. But unfortunately, they will have to, give away at least one turret there. There's no way that base turret would actually survive in that crazy siege that Myanmar was planning out. And now we get to see the items, by the way, for the anti-cuirass and the blade armor. It's already built up by Ken, so at least now we understand why he's so tanky. But looking back at the Roger, looking back at Run, it's actually just a normal build, right? He's utilizing the Windtalker with the Endless Battle right into that Sky Piercer, so utilizing a whole lot of penetration, base damage, and utility. Technically in this kit, yeah, it's still with that movement speed with the Windtalker and the additional true damage you deal on that Endless Battle to shred through some of these tanks. And already Myanmar are looking to go for perhaps an ambush here all around. But for... Oh, Ra actually also picks up a Holy Crystal. Those Eternal Guards that have been very big for Cambodia, they could actually now start bursting people down from Myanmar with that Holy Crystal. Myanmar is going to be very careful as to how that Eternal Guard gets used up and to Ra's positioning. Because so far, Ra has been actually playing these team fights so well. Never really being fully targeted or taken down or even low in these skirmishes up until, when Myanmar makes it messy. But it's kind of weird because for Myanmar at least, they want to play it front to back. They want to play it as clean as they can in these team fights. And it's Cambodia who actually want to look for messy team fights. If Lucas, Felix, and Run could actually flank to the back, or if they could find a massive re-engage, that would be great. I'm offended.
Yeah, I'm offended. Already going to be expended. So once again, Myanmar, how do they play this out? Knowing that a base is fully exposed from Cambodia, they could take advantage of that if they want to. And that's part of this process for the Lord Dance. And now Sarmian Felix going to try to keep that front line. It's really up to Boxy here to find his own setup. He does have the flicker available. Have to keep an eye on that. Has immortality, so can extend some of his health a little bit longer. Does jump in. There's some annoying Fury. Not going to be able to find the they're looking for. It's only Zinez. He goes in defensively, but look at Juno's damage. Has to pop the Wind of Nature. Ken could be in trouble now, and on the backside, they're going to force them back even further. Myanmar left to run for the base to heal up. But it looks like Ruby DD will be able to keep them from committing to the Lord just now.
We've gone to a point where this is the longest game of the Asian regional qualifiers. Technically, even if we combine the African regional qualifiers, we haven't seen a 23-minute game just yet. So that already breaks the records here just for our game one. And it seems Ruby DD wants to go in.
Oh, huge final slash with a flicker combination, and they'll take out Ra. He's been doing such a good job on positioning and now gets taken out, and now it's Sarmian Felix. He's trying to extend, but he will go down and Run. Left in it all, and another member falls as Myanmar now dismantles Cambodia, and that's going to be enough for them to possibly just end this game. They don't need the Lord. They'll just go ahead and take down the base further. Minion's going to be pushing in. Lucas trying to buy as much time as possible, but Feathered Airstrike is too much, and Boxy as well. The Minion waves are already pushed into the mid lane. They'll clean up the kill just for the finesse, and they'll take game number one.
Well played to Myanmar. And man, of course it's gotta be Myanmar to do the things that they did in this game, right? It's gotta be Myanmar to get a massive gold lead at the start with a late game composition, to actually throw that lead later on right as the Lord, the enhanced one, spawns in, and to win it when the gold is all but even. Wow. Well played to Myanmar. GG to Cambodia. We'll still have another game, and perhaps for Cambodia, they can actually force out game number 3 here, considering how well they played in towards the later stage of the game, which is the big, should be the big weakness coming in from Cambodia, which is that late game coming in from the composition. They were able to make things work really well, with Run the King being definitely the highlight together with Ra. Those two, as long as they were able to actually, combo in together some of the burst plus that execution damage from the Sky Piercer, they've been actually able to even go through some of these frontliners from Myanmar. But in the end, the consistent damage coming in from Juno and Justin, the two J's from Myanmar that have crazy burst damage, crazy consistent damage as well in towards the later stage, was just too much for Cambodia to handle. And unfortunately for Cambodia, they're going to have to take a loss here in game number 1. But I think the adjustments that they need to make are quite simple, right? They already saw what Myanmar have to offer. They saw that Myanmar are very big risk takers, so maybe Cambodia can actually punish that later on. The fact that they were almost able to pull off a comeback was already impressive, because remember, those are 2 side lanes, bro. 2 side lane base turrets were already taken down before that enhanced Lord, and the fact that they were just able to team fight, win over and over without having those 2 side lanes, it's super unfortunate for them, because Ken was able to steal that evolved Lord. I think if that didn't happen, if Cambodia were actually able to utilize that man advantage, to get and secure that Evolved Lord, things would have turned out very, very different. I think that's the kind of the pattern though, all from this game, right? Ken was definitely outclassing Lucas in the jungle for the most part, even in the early game, enabling the rest of the team to go for these kills and stealing all the way from the start. It was Ken who stole the first turtle, as well as that Evolved Lord, and then the combo together with Zide, Mythic Seal, Myanmar here, they kind of have that synergy that we were talking about, Naisu. The fact for, at least for Cambodia, right? Some of their members, they're used to playing with some of these imports. Maybe the synergy is just not fully there just yet here, and they need some more games to get going for that synergy to finally click. But still, you do see, at least for the three members, Boxy, Ra, and also for Felix, that they were able to bait out some of these skirmishes. Boxy completely outplaying Myanmar here in this particular skirmish in the mid lane, and they were able also to create some space for Run to escape. But Lucas on the Nolan, a lot of times, you know, way too over aggressive, way too overextended, getting punished down, and this is just unfortunate for Run. This should be a winning lane for him up against an Atan, but the fact that Myanmar always sent members down below, always put in the resources to get Juno ahead, was just so tough for Cambodia. But still, they were able to put up an amazing team fight every single time. It was just that Myanmar was able to prolong these team fights to a point where their composition would actually get the dub. And this is another instance of that same thing happening. In the end, Zide does fall. You know, technically the team fight goes to Cambodia, but Myanmar have depleted all the resources coming in from Cambodia to a point where they can get a turtle for free, they can go for a turret, and the macro on top of the crazy team fights from Myanmar is really what makes them special here. Compared to Cambodia, where they were kind of reacting to the plays, Myanmar were dictating the pace. They were the ones staying proactive. They were the ones forcing these plays to happen. And even here, when Run the King gets eventually chased down by Justin under this turret with Ruby DD2, it was very little that they could do in these kind of skirmishes when it's still all clean. The turning point will be this moment right here. Technically, the moment before the moment you see on screen. When Ruby DD and Zide were picked off, when they actually went for a fight with having two side lanes, that was a big mistake from Myanmar. And here it was very scrappy. You know, Ken trying to go for that steal, but it was actually resetted. So it was really tough for him to get that retreat down. He couldn't get it done. And this was the turning point. This is the classic Mythic Seal or Myanmar kind of play where they take risks. They can actually go, if they win, if they want to fight before this Lord, you know, they can actually go for an earlier end, or it'll prolong the game to a point where it actually literally becomes 50-50. And that's what we got to see. Boxy, every single time right after that turn, was able to go for these crazy engages. And look at the isolation here from Cambodia. They were able to completely isolate Ruby DD, noticing the mistake that he overextended, and instantly just focused him down. But still, in these team fights, what looked to be a crazy Cambodia win ended up with such an early retreat from Lucas, man. That was so early. Now that I'm looking at it to the highlights, he panicked. He just panicked. He tapped into that retreat even before, you know, the indicator showed that it was low. Maybe it was him trying to combine that retreat damage with someone else, maybe with some burst from the Cruise Blast, but that's a mistake that eventually became very fatal to Cambodia, and Myanmar were able to take the control of the game because of that retreat. Oh, that was so unfortunate after looking at the highlights. I thought it was just like, you know, 50-50 retreat, but it turns out he panicked. It wasn't even 50-50. He gave it away.
Yeah. It was way too early. You know, so I guess if you really look at it and you break it down there, like Lucas has to step up in a way from that, but it was just overall like the team fighting as a whole from Cambodia was pretty good. They stuck into the game for a long time. They even had a potential comeback even, you know, they shifted the momentum at least throughout that game. But unfortunately, when it came down to, you know, this later portion, we talked about this before going into the game, Mirko, where we mentioned when you get to those third, fourth Lords and they get, you know, they start to hurt, number one, a lot more because of the changes even with the Lord. So I feel like that was one difficult thing. It's already hard to do that as a Nolan or any assassin jungler pick, but then you really have to, like, if you just sit there too long, you're going to take too much damage. So maybe that was part of the reason why, you know, it was way too early on the retribution. But overall, I just think that Cambodia actually had good team fighting potential. We saw a lot of that, you know, in terms of the sets from Boxy, the Eternal Guard usage, like we mentioned from Ra. The positioning, for the most part, was good, but eventually it gets so chaotic and you know, you're dealing with multiple entry points. I mean, trying to decide to, how do we avoid Zide's I'm offended combinations with the flicker? How do we not get final slash from Ruby DD? Like, there's so many things that they had to keep an eye on. I feel like at some point it got just a little bit too chaotic. And this time Myanmar's been doing this for so long that they just, even amidst the chaos, like somehow, some way, Myanmar just makes it look like so calculated. You know what I mean? Calculated chaos. And this time around, even I will say that I noticed with the Fredrin, though, it's not as easy to just sit there and tank things up, though. Like, there is a definite change where you got to be a little more finesse with it. You know, you got to be a little more technical with the way that you're using the Fredrin, instead of just planting yourself and tanking everything and regenning everything back up, you know? And so with that, I think part of this is just a way for Cambodia, the way they can adjust, because it is a best of 3, right? It is match point, of course, going into the next game, but Cambodia showed a lot of good things here for this matchup. I'm just wondering if this is maybe it's a better time for Lucas, depending on what he picks up, if he still wants to go with an assassin, because honestly, I could see Ken just doing this again. Like, if they want to pick the Fredrin, go for it. Like, they didn't, that was not a problem at all dealing with this. And so I think one of the things, though, too, is get Lucas what he needs to. Run did a good job with the Roger, but I feel like you didn't solve the Nathan problem, especially late game. Like, the scaling and the amount of damage and just potential that Juno had, there was not really something that solved that issue for them, because there was just overloaded with damage at the 20+ minute mark. Like, we already talked about the power spikes for a Natan in general, especially when the Holy Crystal gets locked in. Then you have the Divine Glaive even. By that time, you get shredded so quickly, and that was kind of a problem, because then the way that the Roger works is you need to be able to maneuver yourself back in and back out, and sometimes you're just sitting there looking and waiting for the Lycan pounce, but you can't use it because of, you know, all the CC even potential or just getting bursted down. So one thing is, Roger's still a great pick for the gold lane, but I think if this was a different marksman in that case, then maybe they were able to provide a little more covering fire too. And even so, with Lucas, that was a big problem with game 1, man. You know, it was just I don't want to say it was all that. It didn't all come down to that, but it was also a big component of them either turning that game in their favor or not towards the end.
It has to be the game plan, I think, for Cambodia, right? Because I can definitely see the Roger work out. If they wanted to go for that kind of style, I agree. They might have to just swap the Roger for something completely different. Maybe something like a carry if you want to go for these prolonged team fights, or maybe even a Claude, right? Just deal some DPS instead of the burst damage that you have on the Roger. But the fact that they picked up the Nolan means that they technically wanted to utilize the early game snowball, but they just rotated to the wrong side of the map. And I think that's what caught Myanmar off guard as well, because early on we saw from Myanmar, at least, they were rotating straight to the XP lane. They were so aggressive. It was Ken and Ruby DD against the world, and they were kind of shocked because of how many members that showed up from Cambodia in that XP lane that should have been the weak side of the map by all means, because Cambodia have a Roger against a Natan. I was also already praising that pick, right? I love the fact that the Roger was flexing the last minute to go into the gold lane instead of the jungle, because they already see a Natan of the enemy team. So that can actually give you a lot of opportunities to actually, you know, take down the Natan in the early game, shut the Natan down all the way from the start. But then when they started putting resources down into the XP instead of the gold lane, I knew at least there that, you know, okay, they're not really going to be able to fully utilize the Roger in the early game. They're going to utilize him more in the team fights, which did happen. And yeah, if that's the case, maybe something different could be great. If they wanted to just put the Roger or whoever's on run as a weak side, carry would have been solid. Claude would have been solid. It's actually match in the mid to late game stage in terms of dealing damage would be great, because in the end, that was ultimately their downfall. DPS kept on coming through towards them, kept on shredding them down. It was really, really tough in towards the later stage, and somehow they were able to still make it work. So still very, very impressive showing up from Cambodia despite the loss, because that composition should not be able to almost win against a full late game Natan, right? That Natan should be able to shred through everyone. I think we got to give props to Felix though, because of his usage of the Vengeance every single time as well. When he decides to pop it, it was always perfect. It always punished Juno. Juno was caught off guard so many times when he went for the entropy and, you know, the full attacks.
Yeah, it's good to see Thamus like come out too, just because again we've been only really seeing very certain picks, like very, very few picks that would be the Yuzhong, the Triza, kind of pop up in the XP lane, and you know, this time around we got to see something different. For the next game though, I don't know. Like when you break it down, I think it's really, yeah, gold lane and jungle even, as we jump into the draft actually with that. So we'll see exactly what the changes here are going to be, especially with the swapping of sides. You know, we are going to have this swap in for Cambodia because they get the 2 picks off this flip of the first pick blue side priority. They could already round that out the best way they can, getting 2 priority picks that are valuable enough for their whatever lineup they have planned. Because like you said, even with a lineup that isn't supposed to necessarily go up against the late game Natan, like they did a pretty good job. The execution was there. It's just it fell apart. It wasn't as solid as a whole. And I think you talked about this specifically about, you know, Cambodia even going into the draft, was sometimes if there's a little bit of a lack on one of the roles, whatever it may be, then the struggle will eventually show. And Myanmar is a team that statistically is usually on point from each role. And I feel like if you just look at game 1, you know, there were some minor mistakes here and there, but overall Myanmar knew exactly what they wanted to do in that game and how they approached it.
Already a big change though in the drafts now that we're looking at it, right? In game number 1, it was, well, the big change number 1 is definitely gonna be the sides for both these teams. For Myanmar, they were on red side, and they were actually the ones to ban out the chip, the Harith and the Angela. And I think for now at least, they're actually trying to force Cambodia to decide if they want to go for the Loyi ban, the chip ban, or to leave everything up for grabs and to technically leave it over to Myanmar to take. It's going to be really, really scary though if Myanmar actually decides to go for that chip. They're very, very good in the early game. So using the fair miss, the Fredrin bans now, full respect, it'll create space for some of these other heroes that were banned out in game number 1 to be left open. Because I think for Myanmar especially, we saw Ken on the utility. He's great on the utility, but he's even better on the assassins. This guy is a monster on the carry picks, right? Even the Granger, I think it was M4, he was able to utilize that Granger with the Harith in the gold lane and make it work. So I think that's the plan for them. They were really hoping that the lane was going to be left open, but now something that has changed is the Angela and the Mathilda has been left open compared to game number 1, and maybe it should be a prioritization for Myanmar, and it does become prio. That Angela first pick for Myanmar, leaving the Mathilda open, and I think for Cambodia at least, they're actually going to take their time with this one. I don't know if they want to take the Mathilda. It's a safe choice. It'll be very, very good for the composition, especially if they want to go for those prolonged team fights, but they might just want to go for some other picks here at the start. Maybe going for the Terizla early would be good too, right? Something that can actually, you know, nail some of these members from Myanmar down so that that combo, if they actually still want to rely on that kind of combo with the Roger, could still be good. Roger Terizla could be the first choice to go for here, or maybe they might go for an early Valentina just to try to take some of those ults that, you know, Myanmar like to play with, especially now that they already have an Angela. But they will just pick up the Roger first. That's a very good flex pick again. Super prio now, and actually, they won't utilize that flex pick if this is the pick that they decide to go for. It's a Baxia. So straight out the bat, they're revealing that the Roger will be going to the gold lane, and they'll be taking the Baxia away from Ken. It could be very good with Angela. Unless the Baxia goes, what, Rome? The Fanny gets hovered over. This is another Ken pick that I know personally. He's very good on these assassin picks, so it wouldn't be strange for him to go for a Fanny, actually, especially now that he already has an Angela to help him.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially with the Angela. So Terizla's locked in for now. I guess they're just showing that there's some possible threat that could be played out. If the Claude, I would actually like if this Claude is locked in, that's fine too. It rounds out this first phase for Myanmar, and it is going to be the Claude. So once again, this is going to be, I still feel like a little bit, it could be a problem, just like in game 1 for Cambodia to somehow, some way get a hold of Juno. They didn't solve it in game 1, and if that Natan performance is how he's going to play the Claude, then I feel like that's concerning if you're for Cambodia. So this is going to probably be a typical matchup that we've seen throughout ISF and even in other tournaments. It is going to be the Yuzhong versus the Terizla and the XP lane. And with that, part of this too is solving the Angela problem. And I don't know if there's the room for this anymore, because typically when you have Angela or high shielding heroes, you're thinking also Esmeralda, which Esmeralda has done pretty good, I feel like, since some of the changes. It's just some teams still don't pick her up. Now, with that, there's plenty of items now that work and deal with, the healing or sustainability now, with the changes even to the glowing wand. So depending on what they pick up for even the mid lane, that could play a part in Cambodia's game plan. But as we get to the second phase of bans, they could really focus down on the jungle, because you already mentioned, we already saw the Fanny show. It is going to be the Julian that gets taken out. I'm wondering if they still want to use one ban towards the jungle to narrow down some of what Ken can do. But even so, whether it's assassins or not, I would just assume like you kind of want to go that way. Well, do you actually want to play an assassin into a Baksha? Or do you, I guess if you have an Angela, it works. But I could see Ken still doing either way, like utility or assassin for this lineup.
Oh, so Franco band there. So okay, so maybe setting up still for a Fanny pick, right? With that Franco band, something very, very mobile in the jungle. We have seen Ken also play the Lancelot. This guy is the man who actually popularized the the Lancelot tank, if you remember, back in MSC 2022. So it wouldn't be strange if he actually does go for the Lancelot, the Fanny as well. He just really loves the assassins. He even tried to force the assassins in a meta where, assassins don't really do too well. So it wouldn't be strange now, especially with the Sky Piercer be a very, very good item to go for. It's a Julian and an Alice ban. I really like that respect to the Alice, man. The Alice in the jungle certainly could work. It is something that I have seen many times before as well in Indonesia. Ken, maybe just like the Ken in Indonesia, could utilize that with the Angela to go through and even beat the Baksha. It's very weird, right, that the Baksha is scared of the Alice, but still, if the Alice does scale and does get a very good early game, it is very, very scary to go up against, even when you already have that anti-regen. So completely understandable here, and it seems like they're just trying to take as much AoE, as much shred damage as possible. And I would actually say that with the tanky lineup that they have, maybe going for the Exborg ban would have been better than the Julian. Because at this point, I think the Exborg can still be used in the jungle. We have seen that before. They can't really go for the deny pick on the Exborg anyways now, because they already picked the Yuzong and the Baksha, right? So now they go for the Valentina that I expected in the first phase. No, they're hovering over the Valir. I don't know about this one. It does make sense, though, with some of these divers trying to go in. You can just throw them back with your flames. That could be a solid game plan, but Valentina has got to be the safer choice. You can take a big ult. You can choose between the penalty zone or the hard guard, or maybe the two other picks that have yet to show itself now. And for Justin, what would be a mid laner to go for here? Lilia?
Lilia, maybe. I would be crazy to say Gord even. This is something that we did see pick up against a Valentina, or sometimes vice versa. But because of so far, maybe like there's too much. I feel like at this point, mid lane can go either way. You have Valentina that was already locked in. Farsa is still available. I'm not sure if Justin wants to play that again, and because you'd most likely give, like, whatever you pick in the goal in the mid lane, you're just going to give up. You're going to give up to the Valentina at some point as well. This could be what you were mentioning. Looks like the Lancelot might be locked in.
There you go.
So this is a mid lane. Yeah, is this a Rome? Yeah, Rome, Edith, and then mid lane Angela? Is that what we're looking at?
That should be the case, unless it's an Edith mid and a Rome Angela, right? Something that's kind of different, but maybe can work too. I mean, they're overloading the Valentina with a lot of big ults right now, dude. There's a lot of big ults that Valentina can actually take. That's a Primal Wrath, a penalty zone, and also a hard guard. I think the Primal Wrath, though, should be the most valuable ult to take for the Valentina, and it seems like for Felix, they really like this performance in the Thamus. I have to agree that Thamus' performance was really, really good, but they already have a Yuzong. So where's that going to go? Are they going to go for something crazy here? It should just be, all right, yeah, it should just be a solid roamer here. I was about to say, right, if they pull off something crazy while being one game down, it would be pretty, Cambodian. Cambodia loves to go for those crazy picks, and I love it. I love Cambodia for it, but it'll be a solid pick for Boxy. Kind of risky, though, up against the Claude. There's a built-in Purifying against the Lancelot as well. Maybe a bit tough to pull off, but it's Boxy. We were talking about their mechanical prowess all the way before game number 1, and I love that we get to see full mechanics here for Cambodia in game number 2. Valentina Cho and the Yuzong.
Okay, interesting too. And I will say real quick, I'm happy with Lucas. At least he's going to have the Baksha. This is going to allow him to be a little more, upfront and not have to worry so much about getting bursted down, on this jungle pick. So they got that. Still Run the King running with that Warcry. We are going to see Warcry also utilized here from Ken. I was almost hoping to see the combination once again of Focusing Mark and Warcry, but not going to happen here.
All right, no Warcry at least for Felix, but we will see 2 Warcries for Ken and also for Run the King. Very interesting stuff here. Ken on the Warcry. This guy's a pioneer of the tank Lancelot. I would love to see how he utilizes this Lancelot now with the Warcry. So he's expecting to go for longer team fights instead of burst. I love that. No lethal ignition, no burst. He wants to utilize the consistent damage. And by the way, for you guys watching as well, this is already going to be a change for the Cho. You can see that passive stack now on the mana bar, and for the Jiku no range, it's also been increased. So for you guys, welcome to game number 2. Will Cambodia be able to force a game 3, or will Myanmar just clean sweep Cambodia here with this more of a AoE composition that they have?
Okay, I'm glad you pointed that out because I want to see how this works out for the Cho pick. At the same time, it's very a mechanical game for boxing to kind of deal with getting the right setups here. This is always something that you kind of have to witness whenever you see a Cho pickup. It's got to be surgical. That's really what it comes down to, and being able to target or lock down the right targets more so than, for example, the fact that you have an Edith on the play for Rome here from Myanmar. And, part of that is the setup potential with an Edith is great with the Onward and Earth Shadow combinations, or however you want to use it. But then you have quite a bit of damage too. So Justin actually going to flicker on out of there. So, I mean, even the same. Okay, hold on. I actually just got mixed up here. It is going to be the Ruby DD is in the XP lane, and they planted the Terizla in the mid. Yeah. I just got thrown off by that for a second, but yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work out. I guess it's just to deal with Yu Zhang.
Yeah, at least for Indonesia, we've actually been seeing a whole lot of Terizla mid from one particular blue team, and now it does seem like Lucas wants to go in, but Justin's already rotating down below as well. A fight for level 4 here. If Justin gets level 4, that's a big power spike. Oh, Felix, no Petrify committed. They're just going to go for level 4 here as they set up for the turtle, and it seems like Boxy will be first onto it, but look at the aggro taken away by Zide on that Angela, who also has hit level 4. So for everyone except for Boxy, they're actually all in their power spikes.
Yeah, this is a big moment. Dragon form are we going to be used to zone them out a little bit further. First turtle for the fight. Justin looking for his own entry point with penalty zone. It'll be Ken though, gets the turtle. Can they win the fight? Justin the first one to fall, and now they're going to force them back even further, but they jump back in. It's Ken that falls next, and Cambodia winning the fight all throughout as 3 bodies fall for Myanmar. Not sure if it's going to be another, but sorry on Felix. Will get stunned, but he's going to be just fine. So Cambodia comes out big with the kills, while Myanmar got the turtle.
It started off so good with that steal, right? The puncture straight into the Thorn Rose, comboed in with the Retribution, but then Cambodia, the prolonged team fight of their composition definitely is better, at least at the start, because the Valentina can also steal the Primal Wrath, and that was the big concern when we saw the Edith pick, right? I mean, the Valentina have so many ults to choose, and in this skirmish, Ruby DD wasn't really able to shred like Ra, your big daddy can, right? Still very, very funny on that name, man. Shout out to Ra for that name. But we're going back live again. 3-0 start now for Cambodia. It should be really, really good for them, especially for Ra and Felix. They should be able to really force and go for these proactive maneuvers, which they do find comfort in. For Cambodia, at least, they do really well when they do get, a way to dictate the matchup. So this time it's already looking really good for them, and Myanmar will have to go back to farming up until maybe Ken finds another power spike to go for. But now Boxy, ooh, interesting start there, but for Ken, I really wonder what the item power spike is for the Lancelot, right? Yeah. Is it the War Axe? Is it still going to be waiting for the BOD later on in the Melfic Roar? I am kind of curious about the build path as well, technically, for Ken. Is he even going to go for full tank, or is he going to go for a mix? Maybe a semi-tank build like he's kind of known for?
I think for this, with this lineup, you could probably maybe even do somewhat of a hybrid, pick up 1 or 2 of those more offensive items and then go towards the defensive, because later on it is going to be just him trying to get into the objective dances and try to steal it. Now he did it earlier, but unfortunately after he did it, you know, they fell apart from that. Blazing Duet gonna force a run back, nothing to get the kill there, but meanwhile for the turtle, once again under the turret, had the heart guard, and now Sarion Felix under the fight will be able to get possibly some more sustain out, does get the kill on Justin, and now they're gonna battle out further. Boxing trying to run, has to flicker out. Ken could not get the kill to follow on through, but now Juno part of the fight, forcing them back further. One hit away from the Love Waves, and Zidez does get it before he has to flicker out. 1-for-1 trade across the map. No one to take this turtle just yet. Ken quite low himself in the exchange.
Mid lane for jungle. That's actually kind of worth Ken. Oh,
Ken?
Still able to escape that last bit of damage.
Oh, I thought it was going to get him for a second, man.
Same. Oh, it looked so scary for Ken, but he's still able to survive there. And for Cambodia, they should be able to utilize now the space, this new information that Ken is very low, to secure the turtle, the second one, for free. And this will only just put them in a better spot. Their snowballing comp is already very scary to begin with. Now the fact that the Baksha will be ahead of the Lancelot in XP and in gold, or actually not maybe in gold. Gold maybe still is held by Ken because he was able to steal away that first turtle, but now Lucas in the enemy jungle, Ruby DD.
Ruby DD using that Primal Wrath, gonna get stunned a little bit longer. Earth Shatter now can't get away still, just gets trapped in there, trying to walk out of the jungle. Cambodia definitely just punishing where they can and playing around this lead that they have, and that's something too. You can see IESF on the top lane. Looks like they're gonna set their eyes up there towards Run the King, but Boxing is there to help them out. So Sarion Felix is just gonna go ahead and take this turret. First one of the game, gets the first objective for Cambodia. And the way that they've been playing this early game, going into the mid game eventually here, sets themselves up really well to hopefully get them to game 3. But right now for Myanmar, they want to still kind of whittle this away, but it looks like a lot of attention here. Also, big item pickup for Zidez, does get that Flask of the Waste. It's going to help with some of the shielding, of course. Juno, just look at the shots on run, but will not be able to commit to that turret just yet.
Yeah, I'd love to see the items here, honestly, right? Because it seems for Juno, he has already taken the Golden Staff. Oh, Wade the Dragon.
Oh, Wade the Dragon going to be used, and also the Blazing Duet already utilized. Heart Guard, though, on Juno, and now they still might want to find it out. They're just waiting for some of these ultimates to come down. Lots and lots of ultimates used for that fight with no one to fall. 30 seconds away from this turtle, though. Last one of the game, and Myanmar will just kind of, I guess, play around the fact that they're at a deficit. They don't want to fully commit to a team fight, because if they get taken down, whether it's 1 or 2 members, it does further that snowball for Cambodia. And so far, they've been playing really around it, but the mid lane, once again, Boxy goes in with the Way of the Dragon, finds the right target as Zidez will go down in the exchange, and now Justin could be next. With the body of Smith, it's not going to be enough, as it's a double for Run the King, and now Cambodia will get themselves another objective, a turtle here. There's not much Ruby DD can do with this, as Lucas secures the turtle.
The Boxy mechanics, man, shining in game number 2. When they get to a position when they actually can go for these proactive maneuvers, Boxy is just so much scarier compared to last game when he's put on a, you know, kind of reactive roamer. Oh, Ken
could be in trouble, gets Retribution, gets slowed down, and now Lucas sits right on top of him with a Run the King, getting the kill. Boxy could be on the hunt once again for Juno. Blazing Duet, there's the penalty zone. Boxy going to be the one to fall, and now Justin trying to battle it out. They get the Heart Guard on top of Juno, and Lucas could be whittled down and in trouble, but there's the response from Run the King once again, with the Sky Piercer being picked up in the fight. So Myanmar has to back out. It looks like, once again, Cambodia will not let go of this lead.
No trades have gone in favor of Myanmar so far in this game. It's all been Cambodia, and it just goes to show you how powerful they are when they are on these kind of picks, when they are able to dictate the, you know, pace of the game, when they can stay proactive. And again, they're staying proactive up top. Run the King looking for a gank, but Ruby DD will be able to back away, getting that onward back again. And so far, oh, Ruby wants to go for fight, huh?
Ooh. Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, I feel like he's feeling the slowness of this Edith, not even using that flicker available. So with this, Myanmar is going to find themselves really on the back foot, dealing with this just this power play from Cambodia right now.
Slowly but surely, Cambodia will just utilize this build-up, right? They're really happy if Myanmar actually want to go and face them head-on in a team fight, and that's technically what RubyDD did. I don't know what the plan was. Maybe he was expecting some of the members from some of the other members to rotate up top together so that he can get an onward and maybe look to re-engage the Primal Wrath, but Ken's been busy in the bottom lane. He's actually constantly been split pushing, and he's keeping his level even with Lucas, despite, you know, Lucas getting the first 2 turtles, despite him getting so much farm as well in the early game. Ken's still able to at least withstand that. And another way to dragon.
Again with the way of the dragon, gonna wait for that Primal Wrath. It does get popped, but he can't escape from Run the King, and now Juno on the run. Has the Heart Guard, goes in with Blazing Duet to force Sarium Felix back. Justin also in trouble. Run the King won't use the pounce, but they'll find the next kill as Ken drops the 2-for-1 trade. Cambodia once again will get the advantage for this next objective, the Lord take.
Now it's dominant for Cambodia. Now they should be able to just completely steamroll through. They get the first Lord for free. There's no way that Myanmar can actually go for the contest right now. And for Ken as well, the fact that he was able to get that even lead, but not able to really enter any of these skirmishes, it's just going to be tough for Myanmar. Cambodia will take control fully of this game now, and this is where you want to see the Roger. In game number 1, we were talking about how the Roger, we didn't really get to see all those resources placed onto him. We didn't really get to see that snowballing from Run the King. It's completely different here in game number 2 with him on the snowball, him getting that Sky Piercer. It'll be very, very scary. A great Dragon Spear too. In the 10th minute of the game, we have 4 items for Run the King, and I think that name fits into his playstyle, into his standing now in game number 2 perfectly. He definitely is the king. He can call the shots and he can go in whenever he wants.
Looks like they might want to go in here again, forcing the fight. They're going to clear the waves though just fine. They still have to deal with this Lord pushing on top side for Cambodia. Myanmar holds on the best they can, and no flicker available for Justin just yet, or RubyDD. So this is a little bit difficult for them to kind of force a fight, or at least be on the defensive with their initiations. And right now, there's the Lord making its way. Tier 2s are all down except for the bottom lane, and now the shields pop. Dragon Form going to be used as well. Boxy gets forced out of the base here, but RubyDD jumps in with a Primal Wrath, holding on to the turret the best they can. They got to get rid of the Lord. They are going to hold on 1 HP to the top base turret. No one falls in the exchange on either team, so Myanmar, despite being down 8,000 gold, will hold on at least for that first Lord play from Cambodia.
It's still devastating though for Myanmar, because for Cambodia, the fact that they were almost able to take a base turret, and that being also the far lane base turret, means that it's such a crazy advantage that they have to play with. At this point, I think for the Roger at least, if they can find somehow an angle for him to go for just one more basic attack, they should be able to take that base turret down. Heck, I think even Boxy, if he actually rotates up top, uses the Shenpu into the turret and basic attacks it with the passive, he might get it. Boxy? Oh, just opening up the map a little bit. Not going to go for the full skirmish just yet, controlling the enemy jungle, just like Myanmar did to them in game number 1, but it definitely seems a bit more disciplined. You're Boxy! Oh!
Still not going to be able to get the follow-up he was looking for with that Way of the Dragon, but they will pop the Black Dragon too. So still, Cambodia, a lot of ultimates down for that exchange. It might look like Myanmar wants to possibly punish this. Heartguard being hovered over, Ken too. They want to force the fight in the mid lane. Goes in with a Thorn Rose. Looking forward to the Phantom Execution setup. He's already used it. Trying to get away though. Can't escape Ra. And now Sarium Felix will get locked down. Has the immortality. Switches that in. Zidez goes down in the exchange. 2 down for Myanmar. And Run. Making Myanmar run for the hills. But it's just too much. Justin will get taken down as well. It's a triple for Run the King. Absolutely massive on the Roger at 9-0-2, and now Cambodia sets their eyes on the mid lane. They might not even the Lord here to finish the game. Jumps in, trying to buy some more time, but it's RubyDD. Immortality going to be popped, and now the turret goes down. Run the King gets another kill, and that'll be Cambodia taking it to a game number 3.
A dominant performance from Cambodia to turn the tides around to secure the equalizer, and now it's 1-1. We're finally seeing the full best of 3, the full series we've been waiting for, all the way from the African qualifiers still to the Asian qualifiers. We have yet to get a full series, and I'm glad to see it, man. I'm glad to see that Myanmar and Cambodia are the ones to push us to that full game, 3-game series. Because, man, we had a back and forth game in game number 1. We got a dominant showing from Cambodia in game number 2. what does game number 3 hold in store for us, right? I'm very, very interested to see what drafts they would go for as well, because technically for both the compositions, for both teams, actually, the teams who actually went for the Assassins, they ended up not really doing too well, right? It was Nolan for Lucas in game number 1, and game number 2 it was Ken with the Lancelot that really did not play. He actually played quite well, but unfortunately, maybe because with the Terizla and the Edith flex that they were looking for, they weren't able to fully utilize that to the way that they expected. And now we're going to be taking a look at the highlights for game number 2 to see and to take you through exactly what happened in that game. All the way from the start towards the later stage, I think it all starts here where Ken was able to go for that turtle steal, but unfortunately, they gave so many. It's not really about giving the ultimates, but it's more about that calculation not being perfect for Myanmar, right? You were actually, Naisu, giving a lot of praise to Myanmar in game number 1 as to how they were able to calculate with a lot of these crazy team fights. They were able to win just with like a 1 HP, very low HP bars. But I think for Ken, there was a lot of misplays as well. A lot of times he used the puncture and wasn't able to get the reset on it because it was Cambodia who was able to dodge away from it. And that's why the Valentina is just so good. With the technically everyone in their composition is great against the assassin, right? Even the Cho, not in a way that you can actually burst the assassin. In the later stage, especially when you're snowballing, that definitely is the case. But in the early game, the fact that you can actually dash, get yourself displaced so that the Lancelot will find it hard to even land a puncture makes it so easy for the rest of the team to follow up and punish the Lancelot with no puncture. And Run the King, completely different to game number 1. We were criticizing that at least for Cambodia, the game plan was there, but they didn't follow through it in game number 1. But in game number 2, it was completely different. They were able to get Run the King ahead so early on by placing him into the high action lane in the bottom lane. So very early swap for Run the King, and that played in so well. And this, in the 8th minute, is where you get to see why giving the Valentina so many ults to choose is a bad time. Bad time for at least a team that doesn't have the Valentina, right? Because the Valentina in this game, Heart Guard, Penalty Zone, Primal Wrath, all being big ultimates that could give them so much value. But for the most part, it definitely has to be the Primal Wrath. That's the best ultimate to take, and that's the ultimate that we do see the most out of Ra in this game. He's kept on stealing the Primal Wrath in these skirmishes, and he was able to just play as a secondary marksman to the team. It was Run the King in the front, actually, so Run the King isn't even a marksman in this game. He's more of the assassin. It was Ra as the marksman. As you can see, Ra, look, he's always in the back line, just dealing damage and then flickering forward when he can, eventually, to go and get the kill on Ken. But at this point of the game, the 13th minute, it was a 7,000 gold lead already for Cambodia. There was not much that Myanmar could do with their composition because they were kind of also leaning towards a snowball. They needed a snowball. It was a change of pace for Myanmar that didn't work out, and it was just great for Cambodia because if they want to go fight from the start of the game, that's Cambodia's specialty, especially with Boxy on a pick like this. How many times did he get the way of the dragon? We were already concerned. You know, it's an Edith, it's a Terizla, it's a Lancelot, it's also a Claude with a Purify. These heroes, not really that easy to catch, and even if you do catch them, they have ways to re-engage, they have ways to punish you for catching them. Nope, not a problem for Boxy. Boxy on the Cho is just different, bro.
Hits diff, you know, and
Kicks
I
diff.
think like a part of it too. You look at the line, you look at the highlights there, and it was what we said kind of needed to change from game 1, and that was a big part of that was let Lucas have a little bit of a better time on the jungle, and maybe that was simply just letting him have that Baksha pick and being able to be a little more tanky, you know, and that's why I said too, even the yesterday and the days before, I was like, you know, this new patch and everything doesn't mean that the tank meta is dead or anything like that. I think there's just an adjustment period that is going to happen here because, you know, like you said, man, there's 2 assassin picks now that really haven't worked out on the losing team, and it's just part of this lineup that we saw here was really a combination of just Cambodia really making use of, Boxy, the fact that he was able to find so many setups with the Way of the Dragon. And sometimes it wasn't even that, like he wasn't even committing the Way of the Dragon. Like sometimes it was just him kind of baiting things out with the Shinpo, you know, like setting things up that way and getting the minor knockups there and letting that roll there. And then it was a very similar thing. Run the King finally got to have that game on this Roger after the game 1 where he was just shining, especially, you know, that Warcry emblem, guys, like that's 8% extra damage after you use the 3 abilities or auto attacks, I believe it is. I think it's even basic attacks. It procs that 8% damage, and you're seeing that really come to place. And now we've seen a couple different things too, where either that Sky Piercer is picked up early on, which this time Run the King didn't do that. He picked it up later. I think it was like his 3rd or 4th item. And so he was already snowballing pretty heavily based on that early game that he had. And then he became a huge threat. And this time around, with the lineup that they were playing against up, Run the King had a better time being able to initiate or use the Lycan Pounce into a fight because of the fact that what they had with the Yu Zhang even. I mean, Yu Zhang from Sorry I'm Felix, this was a solid choice, classic matchup that we constantly see, you know, the Terizla and Yu Zhang. And I just feel like there was way more impact to this game from the Yu Zhang in comparison to the Terizla. Like, we didn't see too many, you know, crazy penalty zones from Justin. And maybe this is partly because what they drafted and where they went with the roles. Again, we didn't think 100% it would be Justin playing the Terizla in the mid lane.
Yeah,
you know, that's probably part of this whole thing. I was actually, you and I both were expecting it's probably going to be the Edith in the mid, you know, or maybe the Angela in the mid lane. Like, we've seen that in Edith Rome. But this time around, I think the changes here that we saw from Myanmar, like some of the swapping that happened and whatnot, where we're not used to seeing certain things like that, maybe that played a part to it. Because yeah, I didn't really get to see the impact of Ken on this Lancelot pick, which we know is a favorite hero of his. Like, he's played it time and time again and in different metas, but you know, it was just a kind of lackluster here. Like, we didn't get to see much in game 2 happen. And I think all the answers this time around were from Cambodia and the way that they drafted, and they had a very clear game plan in their mind, and they fixed one of the major issues from the previous game, and they ended up taking us to our first game 3, you know, for IESF so far.
They did in a very, very dominant way as well in game 2, right? Because we were expecting maybe the momentum, especially with that early game composition, to be held by Myanmar. And maybe that's what they were looking for with the Terizla mid. Because yeah, we were expecting maybe the Edith to go mid, maybe the Angela to go mid, but it was definitely the swap between the two, right? It was Edith Rome or Edith mid, and Angela Rome or Edith or Angela mid. But it turned out to be the Terizla mid. And with the Terizla mid, it could still work. Again, we see that a lot in Indonesia. Not a lot, but just from that particular blue team from Rebellion, we do see that a lot. But the way that they use it is very, like, they're very, very reliant on the early game. They need the early game to go well, and it's all about setting up for the first hurdle, which they did really well. They were able to get the CC down, the penalty zone, and the Primal Wrath as well, but they weren't able to out-damage the they had a lot of damage too to play with, and they were all beefy boys, right?
Beefy
Even
boys.
the Valentina, you deal so much damage to the Valentina, but the fact that Ra, your big daddy, right?
Your
beefy
big daddy.
boy was able to steal the Primal Wrath and be the beefy boy, because Valentina is actually squishy. I think Ken would have been able to deal with the Valentina, at least in that turtle fight, if there was no Primal Wrath to be stolen. The fact that the Primal Wrath is always there to be stolen, especially in the early fights, that's a big ultimate that you cannot give Valentina unless you have a way to CC the Valentina, lock her down. But in that game, definitely was not there, right? The penalty zone was used just to initiate, and that's it. That's technically what you get in the early game. You get like some base damage, I guess, from the swings of the hammer.
Like the impact.
Yeah, the impact was definitely not like as big, because
in comparison
if they
to
really
Farsight.
wanted the Terizla mid, they could have gone for I'm thinking about the other choices they could have gone for. I think the Lilia would have been an okay choice actually to go for, right? You don't give a big ultimate over towards the Valentina, and you put the Lilia in the mid lane, kind of the same scenario where you will get mid control and then you will rotate a bit faster. So there are ways other than the Terizla mid to actually snowball, and I think they tunnel vision for the mid lane, getting the Terizla at the end of that draft. That's why they picked up the Edith, kind of like panicking. What's Ruby Didi gonna play, man? You know, and they ultimately kind of like the draft definitely fell flat.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I wonder. I wish we could like hear what the comms were like in going through that draft, because that was very different than what we're used to seeing. So, you know, as we wait for Game 3 draft to happen, I'm wondering if they go back to, you know, just like normal setting, like their roles and the picks that we see here, because I think the same thing. There was a lot of things that could have worked differently instead of the Terizla mid, and I think that's why you and I both were just kind of naturally thinking, all right, maybe this is just an Angela mid, and Angela mid works. We've seen, I would say that naturally people would rather see Angela as a roam, not a mid, traditionally, but either way it works, and it was a curveball maybe that they were trying to play around with, having that flexibility and being like, yep, here's a Turizla, he's going mid lane. But you're right, once that penalty zone was used, then it falls off a lot, because then your magic damage, really, all you have for magic damage, if you think about it, aside from Angela, and I don't really want to count that, is like Primal Wrath. Like once you use the Primal Wrath, like there's your magic damage, and then it kind of, again, because of this lineup, the way that they utilized it, it wasn't enough to go toe to toe. And we're talking about Valentina. Valentina is one of those heroes in the mid lane that is typically at the top of the damage meter throughout the games because of the way that she works. And then, like you said, she gets that, if she takes the Primal Wrath, then she does even more damage. So I think we're almost ready, for the draft. I know we still saw some graphics here. Big shout out to the production. They're still trying to, get that situated. That would be our first time actually seeing the pick and ban, the graphics. But hopefully we'll see how these kind of fall into place, like lineup wise, for both the teams, because now that we've had a good sample from game 1 and game 2, and we are rather familiar with these players and these teams just from different tournaments, there's a lot that it can happen as it comes down to this best one. And I know some people in the chat were asking, is this like an elimination match? It's not an elimination match. It's a best of 3. There's for this portion of Asia, there's a whole like a round robin, I believe, and Mirko mentioned that there is going to be teams qualifying later on. There's matches also happening simultaneously offline, guys. So this is just actually our first match for this sub-region of Asia. So it is a best of 3 that'll be played out here.
I think for you guys, if you guys really want to just check what the results are, you guys can go and check out the website that Nightbot's been always saying in the comments, www.isf.gg, and there you can actually pick the region as well if you want to check out what's happened in the last few matches maybe that have been played as well, because currently there are, I think, a few matches that are being played simultaneously, but I'm not too sure as well. You can also see the updated standings right after every single game that will be instantly updated on the website too. So really, really cool stuff. Yeah, there are actually matches going on right now. So go ahead and check it out. I'm just checking it out myself as well on the other screen here. And it's great. It's very easy to navigate around. You guys should go and check it out, especially if you want to know exactly who will be able to qualify, because we'll have the playoff matches, I believe, in day number 4. So tomorrow we'll have another round of the continued fights to get that top 2 slot, but then we'll see the official playoff matches on day number 4, and that'll be a best of 5, I believe. So some big matches coming your way, and we also have the next match later on that we'll talk about later, because we'll focus now on Cambodia versus Myanmar, right? What do Myanmar have to do to get back at Cambodia, and what do Cambodia need to do to hold their ground now that they have actually equalized? For me, Myanmar, I think, go back to game number 1. They do really well on Assassins, cool. They're really good at team fights, yes. But I think game number 1, when they actually can focus around these neutral objectives instead of pure fights, they have something to fight for. You know what I mean? Like in the fights of game number 2, yes, they were fighting for the neutral objective, but when they were falling behind, it almost looked like they were fighting just to fight. They were fighting because they just like to fight. They just enjoy the thrill of dying or winning in that skirmish. And really, it's very unfortunate. It's very fun. It's very entertaining, especially, but it's not really the best way to go at it, especially when you're behind, right? So maybe go with a draft that can actually wait for the late game. If you actually lose in the early game, maybe something that can ensure you for the later stage, like the Natan pick, maybe even a Claude pick that you want to play with, though. Don't force the Claude to fight early on when the rest of the team loses. I think the adjustment definitely needs to be made. It's a very simple adjustment though for Myanmar, and for Cambodia, do what you're already doing. Go for the early game compositions again, and make sure you win out in the first few neutral objective battles, because it seems when you do win out against Myanmar in the first neutral objective battles, again, the tendency of Myanmar to just go for the skirmishes is a bit too easy to predict for Cambodia, and I think they can continuously just ride that wave. Surfs up, man.
Surfs up. Going on that point, I think I really want to see what they want to do for the draft in terms of just jungle picks alone, because now that we've seen essentially 2 games where it's like 1 assassin versus 1 utility, I'm wondering if both of them just throw it all out the window and they go both assassin. You know, because so far we've seen so many assassins banned out. And I'm wondering if that actually is going to change here, banning phase wise in this first phase. It is still going to be the Ling. The Fair Missile is also banned out here. We'll probably still see some of the other assassins even taken out, but also with a focus on, you know, these gold laners, their options. Roger has popped up multiple times now, and I feel like has had basically a 50-50 opportunity to shine or not. And so I think if you're really for Myanmar, it's kind of playing around that. Even so, where if they just decide to lock in what they did in game one and take the Fredrin for Ken, if they do that and they end up going against Lucas, I'm not like that's the thing. I don't know if actually Lucas would do that, like pick an assassin into Fredrin again. But it's looking like we could see that those things fall into place as the Harith now and the Chip are banned out. Louis is still going to be open for now, as long as it's not banned out here. And I would love to see, like I said earlier, Justin on, you know, one of those more traditional mid lane picks and not the Trizla for this game 3.
Yeah, I would love to see also just the Fredrin be left open for blue side at least, right? But that's something that they're definitely going to have to play with now at this point, because even for Cambodia, they're really just trying to read out what, you know, Myanmar want to ban out first, right? So if Myanmar actually let go of the Fredrin, they might not ban the Luo Yi. They might actually go for a swap. So if you get the Fredrin, we get the Luo Yi, we trade that, we get the creativity that we can utilize to even further our early game lead. And that's what we're seeing here, the Angela ban. So not the Fredrin, not the Luo Yi. Now pressure is on Cambodia. I think the best way would just to be trade those heroes, right? If there's going to be an OP hero open, you kind of trade it together. But I don't know too. If they leave the Luo Yi, is the Luo Yi more prio than the Fredrin? Yeah, that was what I was thinking about, right? If they leave the Luo Yi, maybe the Luo Yi would be first pick, and maybe for Cambodia, that might just not be worth it for them because they don't want to play the Fredrin, maybe. But because the Luo Yi will be banned out, I was expecting a Fredrin, but they actually go and steal away the Roger. Again, really good flex, really good deny pick away from Cambodia now. And now for Myanmar, they can utilize this into the second phase even to flex it out in gold or jungle.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I knew the Roger would probably be up for contention because we've seen it throughout the series now, game 1 and game 2. But it looks like, yeah, Myanmar wants to grab that. And that's the thing, we actually don't know if it is going to go in the gold lane or if it's, you know, the choice for Ken to play with, because it could be flexed there as well and saved as a, you know, later choice. How we saw them change things in the previous game. So that with that information, Cambodia, they can kind of build around this. It looks like they're going to be the ones to lock in the Fredrin and the Yuzhong pick. Both obviously solid choices. This allows Lucas to do what he did in game 2 and just kind of focus on some of these objective taking and provide goods CC with the taunts and everything else. Appraiser's Wrath is great. And then you have, once again, a really good, what I would say, performance from Saryam Felix on the Yuzhong. And so we're going back to this matchup, man. I think we're just going to constantly see this. When the Yuzhong is picked up and Trizla's open, they're going to go for it. Now, this time around, it could possibly just, yes, hopefully, I'm saying hopefully it goes in the XP lane and not in the mid. We'll see exactly where they want to fall into place with that. But I think still, this is the decision for them, is like, for Myanmar, do they want to put this Roger possibly in the jungle against a Fredrin? And it looks like the Minotaur is hovered over. This is great combination of ultimates. You have the penalty zone, you have Minoan Fury, you have some sustainability with the motivation of Roar as well. And so there it is. That's locked in for the first phase from Myanmar. Solid choices and still a lot left on the table for the last two. And I think that's where they have to decide, what are they going to put in the mid lane? They need a good source of magic damage, especially some of that burst. But it looks like for Cambodia, they might be looking to lock in their mid lane, so it's not so banned out that they have to deal with. There's a lot being shown here, and I don't know, man. We saw the Lunox in the gold lane yesterday, was it? Yeah, yesterday. And we saw that burst potential. It's almost on par even with what you usually see when Harith is put in the gold lane. So if this Lunox is locked in, we'll talk more about that, but this could also be a good choice. We know how strong Novaria is. There it is, locked in, and this just pairs really well. Anytime I see this combination with Novaria and Yuzhong, she's like a spotter for the Yuzhong for a lot of times. So like Yuzhong, typically he's going in with the dragon form to either zone or at least scout. But this time around, if you have a Novaria, like, you don't actually have to waste it for that. You can actually utilize it in a different way because you have the Astral Echoes to drop down. And this is the other thing, the new items, man. The new items for the Novaria going to be a little scary. Yeah, the lantern, you know, working around this, easy to proc that 800 damage and get that 10% current HP.
Yeah, that would be great, right? The fact that you can actually scout, but I'm also thinking about the possibilities that the Yuzong can utilize the enhanced hitbox to get the Petrify down onto more people, right? The fact that you can actually zone is already great. You can open up the map with the Novaria, very, very good. But that additional hitbox enhancement just gives so much value to everyone else on the team. Even the Fredrin, now you can actually get the knock-up and the taunt maybe to members more reliably, right? And the Yuzong, like I said, the Petrify Furious Dive combo, it's already so annoying to deal with. Imagine when you can't really even calculate the range of that now, that you already get hit by the Astral Echo and your hitbox has been enlarged, right? So, very annoying stuff, definitely. That's what Cambodia are playing with now. And looks like the Edith's going to be taken away. They have had their fair share of, you know, Edith games. Technically only one, but they got 2 Ediths in that game with the Valentina constantly stealing the Primal Wrath away. But also some respect given over to Justin with that Farsa ban. At this point, they might actually also just take the... I'm thinking about some different heroes, but do they want to take the Valentina away? Technically, no crazy like Minotaur or Penalty Zone ultimates, but still, I guess the Astral Echo, if you know, Myanmar have a way to match that Astral Echo, it would just be really, really scary. So they do decide to go for the Valentina ban in the end. And now for the final ban coming in from Myanmar, it's got to be the respect towards Boxy, the guy who plays so well. His name is Boxing, but Cho doesn't really box, does he, right? It's more of a kicker.
Maybe he shadow boxes.
Maybe he does. But for Boxy, I really hope he gets a flashy hero. I really hope, all right. So they go for the carry pick first, and then they try to set up for Boxy. I think this is a good idea. Knowing how good Boxy is in game number 2 on the flashy pick, and how different it was for him in game number 1 on a reactive pick, you definitely don't want to see this guy on a reactive pick. You know, take him off the Minotaurs, take him off these boring roamers, put him on a flashy one, because that's where he really is able to force and dictate the matchup. But it seems for Justin, he wants to do that as well. But for the mid lane, Kagura being hovered over, not too sure if they actually want to go for this. And with the Nolan, that's technically what we were talking about before the draft even started, right? From Myanmar, get a little bit more of that late game insurance to play with later, and it should be, perhaps a Kadita that they're going for. If they do, this is good, but it's also risky, right? They do lock it in, so in the first few fights, it's going to be good. But later on, if Cambodia are able to bait out some of these resources, the cooldown cycle, the cooldown on these resources, it's gonna be massive. Once they use the initial burst, Cambodia can actually take them on in a full team fight, in a long team fight. They got the tools to do it. They got a Yuzong and a carry, a Fredjun as well, and a Novaria. So much consistent damage coming in. So, all right, Myanmar want to take that gamble of going in for the burst and hoping to win it in the first initiation. Let's see if it works out now as Boxy gets his pick. What roamer?
Oh, man. Given the fact that, the Edith and the Cho are taken out, we'll see exactly what the game plan here, too. Real quick, there's a lot of magic damage from Myanmar, and I think that is the gamble in a way. Is this gonna... Oh, it is gonna be locked in. So Grok, the last pick here for Cambodia. Lineup-wise, interesting from both sides. I think they cover their bases, though. Overall, it's just... I feel like when I look at Myanmar's lineup, you're really going for those one-shot potentials. Like, anytime the Kadita is there locked in, that's the plan. That's the game plan. We've seen Justin play this hero before, obviously, and playing with that mindset of just trying to get the numbers advantage with an easy kill. Eventually, it does fall off to an extent, but it's really threatening to Cambodia early on, and then even in the mid-game. So we'll see exactly what that ends up looking like, because even so, Ken is going to be playing that Roger in the jungle, and playing around this instead of seeing it in the gold lane is going to be a little bit different, especially now that it is going against Lucas this time around with the Fredrin here.
All right, let's get into game number 3, ladies and gentlemen. Will Cambodia utilize the momentum of that equalizer in game number 2, or will Myanmar pull off another comeback, this time in game number 3. Who will take this full 3-game series over? Will it be Myanmar or Cambodia? It's your time to spam the live chat with your predictions. Will it be Myanmar? Will it be Cambodia? As we get to see both Lucas and Ken in the jungle, and Boxy already very early on trying to force out that retry, and he should be able to do so because you can see from Ken at least, no retribution available, but he's already very low. Whoa!
Oh, well, that's a great start for Ken. Gets the first blood already. I'm not sure, you know, it's Boxing probably didn't have to commit that much to it, but he ends up dying in anyway. So, you know, this is the difficult situation to be in. If the Roger gets a momentum in either, whether that's the jungle, whether that's in the gold lane Roger, it is kind of tough to deal with. So right now it looks like Boxing's just gonna go ahead, you know, and at least to get vision over here, make it still hard for Ken to deal with. He's gonna take that front side. Lucas also walks up in there. Now Justin gets the front of the damage. It looks like who did get the purple? Lucas is going to be the one to fall. Ken got the purple buff, and now Boxing in trouble once again. Has to flicker out. Should be fine unless he gets chased down. But this is going to allow Ken to go ahead and continue to get resources on the map. And with that, now Myanmar finds themselves 2 kills up.
Oh man, Cambodia with a very early invade, right? And both the invades really failed for Cambodia. They gotta respect the Roger is actually a really good jungler, man. Even with the Impure Rage, right? You get so much more sustain in that jungle, and they're actually gonna go for another engage. And it does seem like, I don't know if Ken actually picked that up, but if he did, then yeah, Lucas will not be level 4. And this is a big problem coming into the first turtle, where Ruby, DD, and Justin are already very close to that level 4. They're gonna have a massive power spike. And even Zide in the mid lane, he should be able to clear up the whole wave and get level 4. So Lucas struggling here. If he doesn't get this goal XP crab, okay, he does.
Yeah. Oh, Ken also taking a lot of damage himself. Oh, Lucas just swoops on in, gets the turtle, and now Ken's gonna be in trouble. Sorry, Felix will pick up the kill. Zidez in trouble, trying to get to the mid lane. A will flicker out, gets a shot though. Oh, Boxing. Is Boxing gonna go for it? Throws up the Guardian's Berry, stall out the recall a little bit longer. But Cambodia finally fighting back in the exchange, and well, that whole thing will actually give them this at least equal now in the gold and a little bit of a lead to work around with.
Yeah, that was really good. Cambodia desperately needed that win, and I think for Lucas, right, we were talking about in game number 1 and game number 2 how he was just missing out on these retries. The fact that he got 2 victories there, taking the XP crab away and then straight out into a steal in the jungle, in the turtle, is great for him. Definitely some confidence boost as well, man, because he definitely needs that now coming into game number 3. It's a leather jerkin start for him, so I think he should be going for a Dreadnought armor first. Yeah, and he does go and complete that Dreadnought armor with the tough boots. So he already has tenacity, now added physical defense up against these beefy members that can deal damage with their abilities. But for Ken, it should still be that Windtalker rush in towards maybe a Sky Piercer second item, but maybe even goes for a War Axe. You know, I have a quick question to you, Naisu. What do you like better? Do you like the Roger in the jungle or Roger Gold?
Oof. I would probably say Roger in the jungle. I'm not sure if I like him in the gold lane that much. I just feel like there's better choices for gold laners rather than Roger. I think he does fit in the jungle though better, especially now.
I gotta agree. That's my answer as well. I love the jungle Roger more than the gold lane. I love it more than the gold lane, and it's because firstly you have a safe way to go and clear, right? But more importantly, you're actually very active in the start of the game, and that's really the important part for the Roger. How you get the snowball early on. Meanwhile, in the gold lane, we're seeing a lot more of these, you know, kind of weak side picks. Just scale up later on, maybe even the Claw, the carries, and then the Tons that we're seeing now. And there's another fight up top, it seems.
Ruby DD already defensively used that flicker, so a lot committed once again at the top side. Justin gonna jump in, won't be able to find the knockup he's looking for, and now Sarium Felix wants to fight back, and this could be the moment they turn around. And Minoan Fury under the turret, they pick up Sarium Felix, but they're fighting under the turret as Zidez will fall while charge gonna be used. Ruby DD does have that body of Smith, keeps him quite defensive on this Terizla, so and he dodges the shot too, so they keep it together. Turtle's up here though, but Ken gonna work on his buff as well for Lucas on the orange. So both teams will go ahead and get a reset before they commit to the objective. But man, it's very close between the two teams right now.
playing it very, very slow, because for Myanmar, technically the way that they want to win in these team fights, I mean, the way that they want to tackle these neutral objectives is through winning the team fights. They want to go for the members first. They don't really want to go for the neutral objective first. That's what Cambodia want to do with a wild charge, and obviously with a Fredra in there to go for the last hit. That's what they want to expect. That's what they expect to go for in these neutral objective battles. So for Myanmar, the person who actually needs to tank up the turtle, the person who needs to take the aggro, shouldn't be Ken. Ken should be coming in at the very last second with the Lycan form. He can go for the gun form, just, deal some damage, poke him down, and that's what they're doing now for the second turtle.
Yeah, they're going to jump in. Once again, Lucas trying to contest this turtle. Shots coming down. He gets thrown into the air as he falls. Ken will get the turtle. Now, Sarion Felix keeping the front line under control, but also in the gold lane. Two fights happening at once. Juno will win the 1v1 versus run, but now Ken can't pick up the kill on boxing just yet. Ruby DD will wait there patiently. He's 10 seconds away from the flicker. I think he's going to stall out as much as he can boxing. And it looks like he's going to do just that. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, they continue down at the tier 1 turret. They finally get it. But once again, Ruby DD, flicker nearly available. Boxing still there, left to the limbs. And they'll go ahead and stall him out as long as they can. They won't be able to get the turret just yet, though, as Sarion Felix is back to the lane.
Yeah, Boxy, he has to stay up top there. He definitely needs to just, try to deny that turret take, because it would be so bad for them if they lost 2 turrets off of that play. But definitely, I want to give a massive shout out to Myanmar as to how they tackled that fight and how they adjusted right after turtle number 1, right? Because in turtle number 1, they were actually utilizing Ken as the guy to go for the turtle first. He was starting things up, he was the one dealing damage to the turtle, and he was taking aggro. And that put him in a position that was just so vulnerable. Way too vulnerable as the main carry of the team in the early game, right? So the fact that they actually played around it, the Minotaur was the one that took the turtle aggro, and it was Ken who just stayed in the back with the gun form dealing damage to it. It kind of forced Cambodia to go in, because either way, if they go in just for the steal, that's kind of not possible, knowing that Zide will use the Minion's Fury and will knock up Lucas, and they just basically, for Cambodia, they just definitely needed to look for a force into that turtle pit, and that's what they did. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for them, because then Lucas was just so open to all the damage coming in, not just from Ken, but also from Justin, who bursted him down quick, even before the turtle got into the the retribution indicator sweet spot. So for Myanmar, a good win there puts them in a very good spot now to look for the snowball, up for turtle number 3. And even in the bottom lane, Juno somehow was able to get a 1v1. Run the King, way too overextended. It was so far inside of the enemy jungle, to a point where I think he was almost below the tier 1, right? So definitely not a good spot for Run the King on this carry. You definitely want to try to go back and forth up against the Natan. You want to try to bait out the entropy and then fight when the entropy's not there. But it seems for both these teams, they actually don't want to go for the 3rd turtle, which is great for both these teams technically, because they want to actually wait up. For Cambodia, they want to wait up. They want to go for some of these levels, some of these farm before they actually go for a skirmish. And for Myanmar, it's kind of tough for them to pull off that turtle fight. But it seems for Cambodia, they're going to utilize Juno being up top to go for a fight instantly.
Yeah, Lord already half health here. Dragon form going to be used. The rest of the team making their way. There's the rough waves of the rough wave combination. And they find Lucas penalty zone into the back as well, forcing him back. And now it's Myanmar looking to punish even further, as Sarion Felix will drop in the exchange. So it looked like Cambodia was confident in taking the Lord, but look what happened. It was a disaster. Myanmar swings down, gets the Lord, and gets some kills, all just for their own Zides.
And that's why I was kind of confused, right? I was saying that both teams really didn't want that turtle, wanted the Lord to spawn in so that it would delay the game to a certain point. For Cambodia, I was definitely thinking that they would actually want to utilize that to go and farm up a bit more, because even Lucas was behind of Ken by a whole level. And again, for Myanmar, they're very happy to utilize that small lead to go for these bursts, because with their composition, if they get a good initiation, they get the win, and that's exactly what they got in the last team fight. Luckily for Cambodia, though, they got a carry and a Navaria. Very good clear. The Navaria dealing AoE damage, and obviously for the carry, dealing with the Lord. So defense should still be okay, but Juno, 9th minute this time. A whole minute behind, the game 1 timer of how he got the Holy Crystal. And now Myanmar can actually start dictating the pace, can start going for these big team fights to force some neutral objectives, or to force some structures even. They'll be able to take a tier 2 up top as well, 2 of the side lane tier 2s. So still some good stuff from Myanmar, as that's also Ken completing the endless battle. For the carry, as expected, this is why I really thought for... Oh, burst!
Oh, the burst is just too much boxing. Juno, as you were just talking about it, now they'll find a triple from Sariam Felix. Breath of the Ocean knocks up Lucas. Lucas will get a kill before he goes down. A maniac for Juno. On line for this Natan, and already 10 minutes in, Myanmar just comes out with a decisive team fight. Man, were you just talking about Juno and landing that holy crystal? And then he goes and gets a maniac, Mirko.
9th minute Natan, holy crystal should be kind of illegal, right? The normal timer is 11 to 12, but you can see the damage there. Run the King got ran down by Juno on the Natan. And then next is Felix, the guy who should be tanky. He picks up a radiant armor right as he dies as well. So he was already on that. He already had some magical defense, and yet you were still shredded down. That's the power of the Holy Crystal at the 9th minute of the game, man. That's why I was so surprised with it being completed so early, because you usually get that at the 11th minute, at the 12th minute. That's usually the time that you get it. That's usually when the enemy team also has, you know, a bit more magical defense to counter that. But the fact that you got it so early means that for Cambodia, at least, they didn't have those items ready, and that's why you saw Felix only get it after he died to the Natan damage. And now he has the Divine Glaive at the 11th minute.
Add salt to the wound.
This is a 13-minute, 14-minute item for the Natan. That triple kill, that maniac definitely got him here way faster. And oh man, if we were already talking about, you know, Cambodia finally getting those items like the Radiant Armor, it might not even matter. Juno has a Divine Glaive. He's basically going to do true damage. Maybe up until Cambodia get another, like, magical defense item on top of the Radiant Armor. If they get Athena on top of the Radiant, maybe they can withstand some of that damage. But even then, Ken will just shred through them with the Sky Piercer.
He's got the Sky Piercer,
execute. And now Lucas, how is he going to get in here?
Oh, Ken, actually, you can see how much the Lord hurts with that change. Now they're going to be in trouble. Zidiz goes down in the exchange, and Sariam Felix will be the one to follow. Ken also battling it out. Penalty zone going to be used. It's a double for Ken. Juno still alive, quite healthy. Rough waves from Justin used. The trade, the 1 for 2 now. Ken is still up, but I don't even think Myanmar wants to commit to this. They're still respecting the fact that the Lord does hurt Ken quite a bit, and they could lose this possibly, as Lucas on this Fredrin will be fine to tank most of it better than Ken can. But they go ahead and get ready for the reset. Zidiz will be up in a couple seconds, and meanwhile for Cambodia as well, and they'll go ahead and converge back to this Lord fight as they get situated in.
Again, another amazing skirmish from Myanmar. The fact that they were able to get both Felix and Boxy there, the punishment was just real. And yeah, we definitely see the change on the Lord, right? You're going to struggle to actually go for the Lord dances on these carry junglers. So it definitely has to be Ruby DD or Zide who tanks up this Lord. Because earlier, Ken was actually very, very low. If Siusu or if Cambodia were able to actually initiate on Ken, that would have been pretty bad. But even then, if they use all their resources on Ken, there's that secondary carry that we were talking about, that crazy Natan, Juno. This man, it seems like on the Natan, he's just so much more comfortable, right? Because we got to see him on a different pick in game number 2, and it was different. His Claude is just not his Natan. His Natan is something special, really, man. From his farming, from the way that he enters these team fights, to the way he kites as well. And even in the mid lane, oh my goodness, almost bursting down the frontliner. No Felix. Myanmar might just look to go for this.
He forces Sariam Felix back to the base, so they know that he has to get some more time. He actually goes in with the Dragon Form instead. Look at the unleashed damage from Run the King. Ken will get the Lord though, but can they win the fight? Juno is shut down from Sariam Felix to fall for Myanmar, and now Ruby DD is next. Tries to stay alive the longest he can, but eventually will get chased down by Run the King and Boxing. But Myanmar, man, did that fight not go in their favor, as Cambodia comes back into the 14 minutes of the game, but they still have the Lord to deal with. Myanmar, the game could be slipping in slowly out of their hands. You saw the team fight. You saw how much damage Run the King now has on this carry pick. They'll quickly work through the Lord and probably get some more turrets in their favor.
And it seems the combo is still a bit too deadly, right? Despite Myanmar being at a massive, like, with holding a massive gold lead, they still were actually punished heavily by the Astral Echo and the Black Dragon form that we were talking about in the drafts. The fact that the hitbox enlarges so by quite a bit, the Felix can actually just jump in, and we actually get to see the damage dealt in that skirmish. And it was both, Felix and Run the King doing a significant amount of damage, but mainly it was Ra. very deceiving. You don't get to see the Novaria damage, and once you realize it, you already get bursted down by the Astral Meteor and even those Astral Spheres and the ranged attack. I think Juno got hit by a big Astral Sphere right as Felix ran him down with a Black Dragon form, because he was able to get the execute down onto Juno. He was able to assassinate him, but the damage was placed down by Ra. So Ra is becoming a big threat now towards Myanmar as we get into later stages of the game, and that's why we're seeing the Rose Gold Meteor. That's why we're now seeing the Blood Wings as well. They need the additional sustain, all the additional sustain that they can get. And technically, even for Ruby DD, he's very, very vulnerable to the magic damage coming in. I think they kind of tunnel vision on going for the physical defense and even the Queen's Wings, that they completely forget for Ra at least. He can actually start shredding people down. Only Zide and Ken at this point have magical defense to really handle the Novaria, and even then it might still not be enough, right? Because the Divine Glaive is already built up by Ra, and I think he's on the way to a last item, Holy Crystal. If he does get that last item, Holy Crystal, that's going to be some crazy burst that he gets to play with. And for Myanmar, they got to start to cycle through very disciplinedly. They need to start to look for angles to take him down in the back, because if he continues to shoot these spheres and Myanmar go in a fight with low HP or even half HP, it'll just give the rest of the team, Run the King, Felix, Lucas, Boxing, so many more ways to enter in these team fights and to punish Myanmar. Yeah,
this is where you start to also see at this point in the game, as we approach, that late game and everything, and we're here. And the positioning is crucial for both of the teams here, actually, for this. And like you said, I think one of the big components for Cambodia to work around is just the amount of damage that comes from Ra, like on this Novaria, and the vision that it provides that we talked about so much in the draft. So with that, Myanmar is actually just going to go ahead and start blazing on this Lord, and look at the damage from Boxing. Will get less than half health here. He's still going to be fine, though. Has the immortality to work around with, too. But this, again, positioning is crucial. Saryam Felix looking for his own position and flank to come through with Dragon Form like we saw previously. Meanwhile, Ra is just assaulting, sieging from the back line. And that's why Myanmar has to be so careful with this lineup that they're facing against. And they have to plant pretty much Ruby DD here to keep the Lord at bay. Lucas doesn't really have to do anything, as it's Myanmar that wants to put the pressure around this Lord. So they find themselves half health now. It's all up to Saryam Felix to probably start this fight. They look like they get ready to go ahead and initiate, but hold on, it's a fourth of the health. It's really low. Who's going to be? Ken able to get the Lord, and there's the knockup from Zidez. But the fight's going to break out once again, and Run the King is just unleashing the Appraiser's Wrath. Will fall down. A wild charge to find multiple members. Immortality going to be popped. Run the King looking to follow up on Ruby DD, but won't be able to find the kill, and now forces Ken back on top of it. The 1-for-2 trade, but again, the Lord is secured by Ken in the exchange.
That combo is still so disgusting, man. The fact that, again, the Minotaur was able to pop in the Minion's Fury, and there's another penalty zone that comes through. So many layers of CC for Lucas to go through, and Ken just gets the free retry again. Here we get to see the replay, and you can see Zidez, look at that, right? Into the penalty zone. So you can see it. Lucas tried to dash in forward to try to juke in that penalty zone, but in the end, still got knocked up, and Ken was able to go for the last hit. Meanwhile, Juno, great entropy to the back, so they actually can, blink back forwards. And I think for Ruby DD, I gotta give him props too, because he was able to actually just stand in the front line, body block a few of these shots, and now they're actually gonna go for the siege, maybe the end game siege. Not enough though.
Yeah, not enough to get that last turret. So it's just showing here, Mirko, that Cambodia's lineup is still a huge threat. I mean, look at this. Ken is quite low, and at this point, Ra can continue to fire off and kind of keep them from really putting the pressure moving forward. So yeah, Cambodia lost that one base turret in the mid lane. They luckily hold on to the top one. They shouldn't lose that, even with some of these waves pushing in, unless Myanmar forces that to happen. But so far, so good for Cambodia on the defensive. And it could just be them really doing this, farming up, continuing to lock in some of the last couple items that they needed, and then getting set up for the next Lord, unless they just decide, hey, we want to fight this out. We want to end this game number 3 before the objective dance even happens. You can see both teams, there's nothing for them to really want to take right now. So they're just going to zone up here into that Lord, because really for Cambodia and the lineup they have, they can't send someone to farm and push one of these side lanes. They need everyone here for this team fight as much as possible, and they know that. So for Myanmar, they can kind of bunch up, wait around for that. There's no quick way for them to just force a fight. And real quick, we see some of the items, still the last ones being to lock in.
Yeah, so I'm just hovering over the items here. Immortality, actually. So we're getting to a point where, you know, these marksmen will start to sell their boots to get their 6th item. And for Juno, it's the Wind of Nature as well. A lot of respect put into Felix because he knows, oh, Winter Crown as well there for Zidis. Interesting. So I believe he wants to go for the Minions Fury, Flicker, and maybe
Crown?
The Winter Crown.
Yep.
Because I believe now some of the changes that have been made to how you utilize that, you know, it used to be suppression. Now you can actually use abilities on top of the Winter Crown and it'll still proc. It'll still be used up there. Ruby DD gets an angle.
Oh, actually able to go in. Penalty zone already used. Run the King. Has the immortality. So they might just have to back off, but they used the Dragon form to chase down Myanmar. They might be forced to fight this one out. Sarion Felix goes in, can't find the connection. There's a Minoan Fury. The knockup is there, and now they're going to unleash. Look at Juno's damage on top of Ken. They're going to force Cambodia even back further, and they find Run the King, and they'll run down Cambodia. Appraiser's Wrath to keep them at bay, but Myanmar might just go ahead. Oh, and a shot from Ra, able to get Zinez down. So it looks like Myanmar wants to make the play, push the top in, get that turret down, and possibly rotate for this Lord, unless Cambodia with 2 members can keep them from ending the series here. Lucas holding down the front side, Juno there using that entropy. There's the immortality. It's already going to be popped. They have the waves pushing in. Now it's up to Ra, left alone. There's not enough time, and it looks like Myanmar will be able to take this series in game number 3.
Well played to Myanmar. Even though there were a few of those fights that went to the side of Cambodia, again, they were able to finally get it done through their leads, through their advantages, playing and adjusting back to their winning conditions. That Minotaur and the Terizla, the combination of the Minions Fury and the penalty zone still was too much to handle for the side of Cambodia. Even towards the end, when the penalty zone flicker combo was already used up to initiate over, when it was already baited out, the Minions Fury was still there, and as long as, for Myanmar, as long as they were able to get that front to back working, it would just automatically be a win, right? And in the end, Cambodia, they weren't able to find those creative angles anymore, even with the Astral Echo, and they actually fell, or they actually, yeah, they kind of fell to that flank as well from Justin, dude. Yeah. Justin, ever since, you know, they lost out in the full initiating battle, he's always been adjusting to that moment to actually go for the flanks. He's been rotating across the different paths in the jungle to find a flank on towards Ra, and in that particular skirmish, he was able to find a great flank. Unfortunately, not catching Ra, but getting Run the King, getting in the back line. The fact that he was able to, you know, kind of like split that front to back composition of Cambodia was already very, very good for them. But it all started here with the first 2 kills being given over to Ken and to Justin. It set the stage for Myanmar to get this massive snowball running. Luckily, though, for Cambodia, they were able to punch back. They were able to hit back here with a turtle take, a good steal, because Ra was able to pop in that Astral Echo to give the vision over, to give those hitboxes over so that Felix and Boxy could go for a big play. But in the end, some of these skirmishes that go back and forth ultimately just goes to the side of Myanmar a bit too often in the early game, and that's what really created this big snowball for them into the next turtle as well. They adjusted very, very well, because in the first turtle, Lucas was still able to enter the team fight, getting the last hit, and then they were able to outplay. But the adjustments made by Myanmar is that, you know, if Lucas wants to jump in, why not? Why don't we actually just go for the team fight first before we go to the turtle? Why don't we use Zidis to actually tank up some of the damage from the turtle to take the aggro so that Ken can still jump into the team fight with full HP? And then we continue with that 1v1 in the bottom lane, and then the Lord here as well. Some of these skirmishes were just so clean by Myanmar in the early stage of the game, especially this first Lord take, because this was the Lord take that was kind of confusing, right? We were expecting both teams to not go for the turtle because they wanted to wait for the Lord so that they can actually delay even further and wait for their carries to get to power spikes. But then they decided, for Cambodia, they decided to go for a very desperate Lord at the mid-game, and that's what gave Juno so much power here in towards the 12th minute of the game. He already had a Divine Glaive, if I'm not mistaken, at that 11th minute, on top of a Holy Crystal. But somehow, again, Cambodia, even though they were under so much like they were behind by so much gold, they were behind by so much XP, they were behind in terms of structures and neutral objectives. They can always pull off a fight win. But Myanmar, again, playing through the neutral objectives. Like we said before this game, as draft even started, that adjustment needed to be made from Myanmar, and they did. They were able to make those adjustments happen. They played around the neutral objectives. They just baited in some of these resources, and again, that Ruby DD body block saved Juno, I think, for sure. With the Lord in their hands, they were able to push in, get in the base turn in the mid lane, and then the final fight was a desperate call by Cambodia. It's always got to be those desperate calls that, you know, win you the game or lose you the game. And in this case for Cambodia, it definitely lost them the game. There was a penalty zone in the flicker already used up. They could have just reset again, cleared up the waves, and maybe gone for they could have gone for the Lord, right? With the penalty zone in the flicker not being there, it does give them a lot more openings to actually enter the team fight or to actually evade from the penalty zone. But they decided to fight, didn't end up going their way, and Myanmar was able to take full capitalization, were able to punish Cambodia all the way to a game end in game number 3. So at least we got a climactic end to the series, right? We didn't get a stomp in game number 3. We still saw Cambodia punch back a few times, almost getting a comeback, almost finding a way to go for, you know, a longer game than game number 1. Fortunately, that didn't happen, but yeah, good stuff for both Cambodia and Myanmar. Well played to Myanmar, though, for, again, just taking those calls and making the right decisions.
Yeah, I'm glad we got the 3 games, man. And I feel like we expected this from these two teams. So like we expected if there was going to be a game 3, it was going to be these two, and it was a show. And I feel like even at the end there, still looking at the highlights, like I wonder what if the game would have ended if they, again, you were able to survive on the carry, but then you forced the fight with the dragon form. Like what if they didn't end up forcing a fight here? So, you know, again, congratulations though to Myanmar. They really held it together with this lineup that they had, and it's just looking at I did take a quick look at the results because we'll get a chance to talk to Myanmar here in just a second. But so I think, yeah, Myanmar, they got the 3 points from winning the series. And it looks like Thailand from Group A was also the other team to get the points they were looking for. And then for Group 2, it looked like it's Malaysia and Indonesia that got those 3 points from their games. Again, guys, just a quick reminder for you guys watching here, there are games happening simultaneously other than the ones just being streamed. And if you really want to keep an eye on what's going on as a whole, check out IESF.gg and head over to the MLBB section, and you guys can check up all the up-to-date rankings and standings happening right now, and for this portion of the pretty much the group stages, right? Because I think, yeah, the Southeast Asian group or the category has the most teams. I think it's like 9 countries that will be competing in this round robin to eventually go off to the next stage, which is their playoff stage. And then, reminder, all this is leading to Riyadh for them. It's the road to the WEC to battle it out once they get to the WEC in Riyadh.
Yeah, so just as an update, you already said it, right? I mean, Indonesia were able to win in the match that was not streamed earlier, and also now with Myanmar. So both Indonesia and Myanmar are actually topping their group. Alongside for Group A, it's Myanmar and Thailand. For Group B, it's Indonesia and Malaysia. So it's literally the battle for first place now as we get to our second match. But we will get an interview first with the winners of match number 1. I wonder who's going to take this interview, right? If it's going to be Ken or Justin, because definitely have a few questions to ask them after that performance, after game 2 especially. What happened there? It looked like they completely lost the vision of what they wanted to do. Definitely want to get those answers, you know. And you were asking about maybe some of the comms that was happening in the draft. I'd love to see that answered as well by some of the members here from Team Myanmar, because yeah, that game 2, all the way from the draft towards the game, it just definitely seemed like, you know, either they were tunnel visioning the draft and the game, or there was some miscommunication, some big ones in the draft and in the game, or maybe they just made mistakes, right? Maybe it was planned. Maybe they have practiced this composition before. Maybe in game number 2 they just made too many blunders that ultimately did not end up with a good game for them. It was a stomp by Cambodia. But I like the fact that for game 1, game 3, when Myanmar won, it is a close game, right? It's really back and forth. But when game 2 happened, it was just Cambodia stomping. So is that just a Myanmar thing at this point, right? Is that what we have to expect from Myanmar?
that's them cooking, bro. Like maybe that's like let them get there, you know. But I think either way, when you look at it, like that is a question that I would really love to hear about. Game number 2's draft, and I'll go back to saying though, like I could still see it working in theory and everything that they had, and I think this is also just to say like we're in a refreshing position for the meta. And so for all the games that we're going to see here for the next couple of days, and then of course the other tournaments happening, it's a refreshing thing to see this shakeup where you're talking about, you know, Trizla possibly going mid. We saw this in the African qualifiers, you know, that was even before the patch though, where it was a Yin Rome and a Hellkurt mid. So we're in this area, man, where I feel like it's a nice, refreshing thing from a viewer perspective, even a caster perspective, to see these changes, of course, with our meta.
Yeah. We got confirmation, by the way, for everybody back at home who are wondering who we're going to be interviewing. It seems we will be interviewing the star boy from Myanmar.
The star boy.
Justin Johnson was a nickname we gave him back in MSC 2022. And we'll finally get to, you know, ask him some questions. Mr. Justin, I still think he has the long hair, right? You know, the signature Justin long hair.
Yeah.
Man, this guy has been here for such a long time now that we think about it, right? It's so unfortunate they didn't qualify to some other events. I would love to, you know, meet him again, but maybe we get the chance to meet them later on in the main stage because, again, for you guys, Southeast Asia, we'll have 2 slots for Southeast Asia for the main stage, and maybe Myanmar can get it done as well. It seems the interview is ready, so we're just gonna bring Justin up. Hello, Justin. How you doing, man? Are you there? Yo!
Yeah, he's got it.
What's up, Justin? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty fine. Yeah.
All right, man. I got a question for you, right, Justin? You've been here for a long time, but I want to talk to you first about that game. That was a crazy game, crazy performance, crazy series. What happened in game number 2? Because game number 2, you guys were playing so differently. The draft was also very different. Did you make a mistake in the draft, and did you make mistakes in the game, or was that already all planned and you just, you know, weren't able to get it done?
Firstly, we have a strategy like that, and in the gameplay, we make many mistakes, so they snowball us. If you ask if they won the game easily, that's why.
Okay, so just mistakes, nice. So you just made mistakes.
Yeah, it's mistakes, but it's part of the game plan too. You know, Justin, again, congratulations to you guys. That was a great best of 3 series to open it up. Real quick, I'm gonna ask you, what team do you want to face off? What team are you looking to face off against the most throughout IESF?
I think SRG, Red Giant, because I heard about them. They are so strong in scrims in tournaments. Yeah, that's why. I wanted.
Sorry, there you go. We're already setting some expectations.
There you go.
Yeah, for Malaysia, right? So we'll see if they can. We'll see if they can actually manage to go to the next stage. Because I want to ask you another question here, Justin. Based on the groups, you know your groups, right? You're grouped in together with Thailand, Cambodia, Timor-Leste, and Brunei. What do you think of the groups? Do you think you got a good group? Do you think it's an easy group? What do you think?
Oh man, it's not an easy group, but it's a big chance to go to the playoff stage compared to like Indonesia, Malaysia, like that. But it's a hard group, by the way. Yeah.
Right. So
awesome,
definitely
man.
a bit. Yeah. So it is a bit diff. Mm-hmm. Got another question, nice?
Yeah. No, that's gonna wrap. Justin, it's great to see you again, and great to see you guys competing here. You have many games ahead of you, and I hope to see you guys in the playoffs. And then, you know, unfortunately we won't see you in Riyadh coming up, but maybe we see you in Riyadh later this year for IESF. Congratulations again.
You better make it,
guys,
Justin.
And best of luck. You gotta make it, Justin.
Yeah, I hope so. I will try. We'll try our best. This is the only chance we have left.
All right. Tell the rest of Team Myanmar good luck from Mirko and Naisu, and we'll see you later, man. Good luck on the next matches. Goodbye, Justin.
Bye-bye.
All right. Always a great guy, man. Justin, you know. Always answering these questions with class. I was trying to bait him in, you know, by saying maybe the group is easy for him, just add some spice. But he's PR trained, man. He's been in the game for so long. He knows not to say that. He knows just to say, you know, it's not an easy group. It's very hard, but we're looking forward to go up against Malaysia. You know, SRG, they've been on a roll, and yeah, that's their next matchup actually. Funnily enough, so for those of you guys who are watching, if you guys want to watch Indonesia versus Malaysia, it's going to be technically based on the teams, right? Fnatic Onyx, but with Albert going up against SRG, but with Gojes and I believe Loliols in the gold lane. So it's a mix of SRG plus a little bit of RSG in the gold lane.
It's I guess you could say it's almost like a half preview, I guess, of like future future tournaments, what's going to happen. But you know, there's also some key things missing for both teams, but still nonetheless, I'm sure it's going to be a hell of a match between them for our next best of 3. But I would say overall, like even just looking at both the groups, I think there's a lot of interesting things that can happen, especially to see what happens between Malaysia and Indonesia as they're leading this right now. But even for Group 1, like I do agree with Justin's answer. I think we could actually still have some surprises though too. I can't wait to see eventually. I don't know if we will. It looks like tomorrow we get a glimpse at Thailand, because that's really what I want to see too. I want to see Thailand play, and I think that's tomorrow that we see them on the live stream. So we'll see how the rest of the lineups follow in, the points follow in for the group standings. But so far we've opened up with a banger, man, for day number 2 here, and number 2 I don't expect anything less, so can't wait to see it.
Yeah, and for you guys, don't worry, you guys will just have to wait for a bit. We'll get some confirmation as to how long the break's going to be, because we will have that match in very, very, very soon. I think it'll be a very short break though, because the match should be starting very, very soon. But don't worry, we'll get that confirmation for you guys in a bit. All right. I just want to ask Naisu at least, right? Because Naisu, unfortunately, you won't be casting the next match. I gotta ask you a fire question. You know what's coming up, man. I can see your reaction.
You can ask me who's gonna win.
Indonesia versus Malaysia. Who's gonna lose? Now I gotta turn it around, right? Who's gonna lose?
That's that's the curveball. Who's gonna lose?
Yeah.
Oh man,
who's gonna lose? I'm not gonna ask you who's gonna win.
Okay. I've heard the whispers about Malaysia as well.
Yes.
You know, well, SRG. I've heard the whispers and everything about them, but they're missing some key components to that. I feel like success.
Yeah.
You know, that they had in their region, especially the whole undefeated thing. So and when I look at Indonesia, they're also missing some keys to the success that they have, but they are filled in also with very solid, legendary players in their own right, so I think part of this, I'm gonna say Malaysia, to answer your question, Malaysia's gonna lose that match in the best of 3. Sorry Malaysia, but I don't have a curse or a blessing, so you guys are at least safe that way. I don't know if I want to ask you for your answer, Mirko.
Oh man, I don't know if I want to answer your question, right? Even if you ask the question, I don't know if I want to answer. I just want to play it safe, right? Because these two teams, they've actually met in the groups of both. So IESF right now for the Asian qualifiers, and they're also going to meet up later in the group stage of the Esports World Cup MSC coming up very, very soon as well. So very interesting stuff. It almost seems like they were just made to meet each other, right?
It's bound to happen, man.
I'm really excited for this match.
Here's my question. Okay, I won't ask you that. I'll ask you this.
Okay.
Is their play style so far from what you've seen? I know we both have watched even Malaysia play quite a bit in their recent, league. And so I'm going to ask you, do you think they have a very distinctive play style difference, or are they more so, similar with each other?
In a way, they're kind of similar, right? Because both of them want to utilize assassins in the jungle. Both of them have very, very good assassin junglers. But I think for the most part, the main difference has got to be, I don't know, they play really similarly to each other, really. It's just like a different region. It almost seems like the same team, but a different region. So I want to see how they actually face off against one another. That's why I guess we'll get to see the difference in level in this game. Hopefully, we get to see if Malaysia will be able to carry on that hype later on, or if Indonesia will get the job done. But it seems we will be heading to a very short break, only 15 minutes, to get into Indonesia versus Malaysia. It's been Mirko and Naisu. We'll see you in a bit.